Good morning, sir.
Good morning, dear.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning,
Good morning, sir.
Okay, right. Hope you can see me. Right now, last week we have completed these IMF issues, but we just want to refresh the FATF one and continue it. So, okay, refresh the what the FATF is. Yes, Financial Action Task Force. Can someone else bit of explain me? What is it? What is a Financial Action Task Force? That's an international regulatory authority which are mainly focused on money laundering and terrorist financing. Right? Am I correct? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, right. Then that has been established in 1989 by G7 countries. Let me to take you by again. Right, Financial Action Task Force. Hope you can see the presentation, right?
Yes, sir.
Everybody can
Yes,
see the
we can see.
presentation?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can
Okay,
see. We
okay,
can.
right, right. Even I hope that you can see the blackboard also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Right. Financial Action Task Force is formed by G7 countries. That was in 1989 at the Paris Summit. G7 countries is the world richest countries. You know, nowadays we have several groups, G7, G9, G20, like that. So once they become rich, they will have a different groups. So 1989, there are 9 countries which are most richest and economically and financially powerful countries, right? So most of them are European countries and plus UK and USA. So those are the countries. They had a meeting in 1989 with regard to the action to be taken on money laundering and terrorist financing. I will define what the money laundering is and what the terrorist financing is in our next class, not next class, but when we are talking about the financial intelligence scope and money laundering aspect. So for the moment, just keep the kind of memory of you all on what the money laundering is, right? But I don't like to use this word, but common word people are using is convert into black money into white money. But it's not a good term, right? It's not a good term, but usually in our society, in our people, in our politicians, even intellectual people in this country, they are using converting black money into white money. You can't find the black money, right? Right? Can you find the black money? Do you have money? Notes in your pocket now? Yes. Right? Can you find out it's a black or white? You can't. Right? So that is what I don't like to use that kind of word. But basically, in our terms, we are talking about what the right money laundering is, right? So illegally earned money, converted into legal form, right? They are trying to show it as a legal money. That's the basic idea on that. We'll discuss it later on lengthy way. Then the terrorist financing, right? Right? Again, the question is, who are the terror? Who are the terror? Right? Who are the terrorists? Right? Let's take the right 2 to 3 lesson to define it correctly. But for the moment, remember that basically terrorists mean those who are opposed to the right those who are fighting to overthrow the legally formed government, state, or jurisdictions. That's the basic definitions. Terrorist finance, I mean, if someone is financing those activities, that's become a terrorist financing. So as I mentioned last week, okay, for the moment, keep those things in your memory, right? In details, we will talk in money laundering lesson, right? So these kind of activities are more common in 1960s, 70s in Latin American countries. Perhaps you might have seen that, right? There are some Latin American countries still they are maintaining separate areas, right? Unofficial countries to grow these kind of drug related plant and productions, right? Especially in the country like Mexico, right? Venezuela, right? You may see that there are part of those countries governed by various people, or we call drug kings. Still, there are some points. Perhaps you could remember that LTT ruled our country. Northern part was ruled by them. Likewise, unofficially, they have a power to rule that particular area, right? So those are the things that happened in the worldwide basically since 1970. Each and every country, they thought what to do and how to do it. What are the measures to be taken to mitigate those kind of actions? So that's what most of the countries are come to the conclusions, especially powerful countries in the world. At that time, there was G7 countries headed by US. Those are the countries, they are taken into considerations. Okay, those things are basically disturbing the market and destroying the financial market. Because of that, they wanted to have a kind of regulatory environment in the financial sector. Why is that? Those illegally earned money, they fed up to the financial system, banking system, and other financial companies, corporations, and they had a kind of misplaying of the banking business. And even at that time, most of the banking staff, senior people, they want to grab the money and they want to release this money in somewhere else because they are getting big commissions on that. That's what the banking system played at that time. Because of that, in early 1970, United Nations also identified the threat of money laundering and terrorist financing. And later on, especially G7 countries, because most of the banking centers, financial hubs are located in these countries. You know this, in the Sri Lankan banking activities, international banking activities, almost more than 90% are rooted to the American banking system. If something goes wrong the American system, we are the sufferer. We are the one of the countries suffering on that. Likewise, almost all the countries, they are depending on the American financial institution, financial system to undertake their banking business. So that's what those G7 countries, they have taken the lead role to mitigate those kind of financial crimes. So that's what the 1989 they have created the institution called Financial Action Task Force. Now remember the by name, Financial Action Task Force, right? That's basically task force. You know, you various kind of task force are coming in Sri Lanka for the various subjects, right? Not like that. Ultimately, it's become an institute. It's become a permanent institute in Paris, based on the Paris, right? So the threat posed to the banking system and to the financial institution, they concerned over the money laundering. Okay, as I mentioned you, FATF is an intergovernmental body. So that means that is owned by each and every member countries. Remember that, right? Each and every member countries, they are the stakeholders of these institutions, right? Those are the stakeholders of these institutions. I will show you what are the member countries, but for the moment, remember that Sri Lanka is not a member of the FATF, right? To become a member of the FATF, Sri Lanka to be gone more and more right journey. Till then, we cannot be a member. There are certain criteria to be fulfilled by the particular countries. Even most of the Asian countries in a queue to become a FATF member, right? Right now in South Asian regions, only India become a member. They also got this membership 3 years ago, right? So they have to show you, in that sense, to become a member of the FATF, country have to show you a size of the economy, size of the financial sector, and the legal framework which you have taken to mitigate this money laundering and terrorist financing activities. Right? Basically, those are the three scenarios. But country like ours, if you compare those developed countries, we don't have much of size of economy and the banking or financial sector, and even what? Right? If you say nothing, right? So let's see whether we can be a FATF member. Anyway, right? So in the Asian region, Southeast region, India is a member because it's a large country, large economy, large financial institutions, and they handle in the huge GNP, gross national product, to the world even. If you look at the trade with the India and other countries, it's a sizable compared to the other developed countries. It's a sizable compared to the other developed countries. Even look at the Sri Lankan economy, more than 25% of the imports are depend on the right Indian market. You can imagine the size of the Indian market. So that's what they become 3 to 4 years ago, they become a FATF member because the size of the economy is most important. The financial system is most important. Because of that, they become a FATF member, considering all these factors. Now, long ago, right, the Singapore become a right FATF member because we know that international recognize that Singapore is a developed country. Developed country. That's the label we have to get, right? Not the developing country, right? So that's the scenario. Okay, so FATF is a policy-making body which work generate the necessary political will to bring national legislative and regulatory reform in the area of money laundering and terrorist financing. This is a word important sentence over there, right? They are the people who telling other countries to, right? Okay, do these things, right? Based on their recommendation, which I mentioned last time, they're asking other country to, okay, come up with the legislations, laws in your country in line with their recommendations. In line with their recommendation. If the country is not in line with their recommendation, not there within their recommendations, they will take the action on it. They will take the action on it, right? So I will explain what are the action to be taken on these particular countries, right? So in short form, if you are telling that even FATF can various kind of economic and financial embargo, right? So because of that, each and every country, those regulatory policies to be implemented, that's a compulsory. No option to say that we cannot do it. But remember that even under this framework, we have seen that lot of things are happening in this money laundering and terrorist financing activities. That's the issue. Perhaps you might have seen that some website in Sri Lanka was hacked by some hackers. Have you noticed it yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Yes. But so far we haven't identified whether those are local hackers or international hackers. Right? That's the critical issue. Even though we have a certain other type of 5 to 6 institutions to protect the cyber security, these kind of cyber international transactions, these websites, but there are some hackers, those who are doing it. So that means you can see even whether we have taken 100% regulatory measures in the country-wide, so worldwide, but there are some people most clever to hack the system. So because of that, so regulators have to take more and more actions and more opportunities to mitigate such things are happening. That's what I told you, right? So FATF also, they have changed their regulatory environment and recommendation time to time. Okay, now policy making body which work to generate necessary political will to bring national legislative and regulatory reform in the area of money laundering and terrorist financing. That's their aim. Okay. So objective of the FATF, when you are talking broadly, to secure, protect the integrity of the international financial system. That's the most important. Why this international financial system? What is the important to the country like Sri Lanka? Why we need the international financial system? Do we need international financial system? Yes, we need. Because our financial system, our banking system, our economy, our trade, import, export are totally dependent on the international financial system, right? If those systems are not there, we cannot undertake any type of business, right? We cannot have a trade. We cannot have a transport, right? So what the international finance system do for us? They are the people who handle in the payment and settlement system, right? Payment and settlement system. That's the most important part. If you are not receiving the money in correct time, if you are not paying the money in correct time, you can't undertake this business. So that's what the most important part. So therefore, right, objective of the FATF is protect the international financial system, right, from the integrity. They have to protect the integrity of the financial system, and they have to protect the financial system from misusing, right? There should be way not to misuse by others. But there are some instances where in Sri Lanka and other countries also, this system can be misused for their objectives. That has happened, right? Perhaps you might have seen there some cyber attack to the banking system and hack the banking accounts and transfer money to various people, individuals' accounts, right? That cannot be happen. That's a crime. That's a financial crime. It might be for the terrorist, right, financing activities. It might be for the money laundering activities. So that's what we want to mitigate those things, right? Then the objective of the FATF, number one, is to set up the standards, right? To set the standards. Standards mean those are not law, right? But we have to follow it. Now see, when you are look at the school aging type, there are also standards by the schools. Okay, you must wear the white uniform. Should be a white color, right? And should be a school logo. And required shoes. Why we want to maintain that standards? But it is not a law. Right? I'll show you what is the law and standards later on. Right? Okay. It's not a law. But if something goes wrong, if you violate those kind of standards at the school level, principal, vice principal, or your class teacher will take actions against you. Am I correct? Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, right? Why we want to maintain such standards? Right,
To
okay,
protect
say
the
that,
law.
okay, school uniform is not essential. It's not a standardized one. If you can come to the school in your own way, right? Principal or class teacher will take actions against you saying that you are not up to the particular standard to match with the school requirement. Right? Perhaps you're right, teacher or principal can take the actions against you, send back home also. Right? It's not a law. But likewise, FATF can say the standards, but within the jurisdiction of country, you can have a set of law. Those standards are set by the Minister of Education. The principals or class teachers are allowed to, right? Allowed to take actions, those who violate that standards. If you look at the boys, right? You can't have a long hair. But ladies, they can have long hair. Right? Sometimes principal cut your hairs, right, boys? If you go to the school like that. So that's what the standards they wanted to maintain. Right? Even though it is not the law, to maintain the standards, it's become a part of the law. It's become a part of the law. That's what I just want to highlight for you all. Right. Then the promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures. Right? Promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures. Right? That's one objective. Promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures. So based on that standards, right? Those countries are expected to have what? Right? Oops. Those countries are expected to have, one thing is legal framework. Legal framework. In line with their law. Law of the country. Right. Then the legal framework. That's the expectation. Right? Then the regulatory framework. Then regulatory framework. Right? System to implement. Or otherwise, institutional arrangement. Right. Okay. Then, right, operational measures. Right? Operational measures. Right? How to implement operational measures. Right? How we are going to implement those things, those recommendations. Okay. Right? They expected right after the standards, right? FATF expected each and every country to have a correct legal framework in line with their law. Why their law mean? The legal system in the each and every country different from each and other countries. Right? So, if you look at the countries, their legal system are different. We talk what are those legal systems basically later on. Now remember that, for example, okay, Indian legal system are different from our country. So they have a federal mechanism, federal law, and the regional law, state law. So look at the US, they have federal law, state law. In addition to that, based on the ethnicity, they have a different type of laws. Sometimes they are not law, but traditionally they accept it as a right law. Now see, country like in Sri Lanka, right? We have, what is our legal system? We call it as a Roman Dutch law. Roman Dutch law. Right? But in addition to that, we have regional laws. Regional laws. Right? What are those regional laws? Okay, I will explain you later, but just for your memory, right? We have a Canadian law. Right? When we go for the marriage, not now, right? You can follow the Canadian law. Right? Then there is another regional law called low country law. Low country. Right? For the Tamil in Jaffna, they have a Tesuvalame law. Right? Most of the Muslims, they follow Muslims law. Otherwise, right? Sometimes they call it as a Sharia. I don't know. Right? Maybe it's a Sharia or Muslim, but they have some laws. Right? Here, whatever the legal system in the country, right? So FATF expecting implement their standards, right? Using the correct law, regulatory environment, and operational measures. That's how they are expecting, right? Okay. For what? Right? Those things have to be in line with their recommendation to one thing is, right, combating money laundering. Combat money laundering. Right? Combat money laundering. What is that? Right? Mitigate the money laundering. Why that mitigate? Right? You can eradicate these kind of criminals. Right? Those kind of criminal things are nobody cannot eradicate. Right? If we can, that's the number one. But only thing is, we cannot eradicate, but we can right? Mitigate. Eradicate. Eradicate means no more crime. Right. Right? Mitigate me, right? Right? So, we have a lesser crime, but no more. Right? Here, eradicate 100%. But, right, mitigate not 100%, but it's lesser than that. Right? That is what, if you can eradicate the crimes. Now talk about the poverty. We are taking a lot of measures to eradicate the poverty. Right? Now we have completed 73 years independence. We have taken, right, many measures to eradicate the poverty. Have we eradicated the poverty? Huh? Have we eradicated the poverty? No, right? Right? Still poor people like me here. Right? You might be eradicating your poverty, but not me. Why is that? It cannot be done. Right? We cannot give the equal opportunity for each and everybody. equal economic status to each and everybody, equal income to each and everybody, and the access to each and every, right, good and services. That's very difficult. Likewise, eradication is much difficult, but we can combat these kind of things, combating money laundering. Then the terrorist financing, right? That's the issue again, whether we can eradicate the terrorist financing. Now, right, there was a time in Sri Lanka, we had a war, civil war. During that period, there were many financing activities for the terror. Various ways they use. They use various ways. Right? I will explain it this other lessons. Now, one example is voluntary and forceful. They ask the people to make a voluntary contribution for this, their, right, LTT movement. That's the voluntary kind. People are giving, they are willingly provide the money. Right? There are some instances where they force to people to give the money. Force to people to give the money. Right? Now we have questions on, yes, whether you give the money to the terror group, yes, it is an offense under our law now. Because you have provided money to undertake terrorist activities. Now the question here is, some have provided voluntary basis, some have provided because of the forceful situation at that time. Now the question we have, whether those groups can be treated as an equal manner. Can be treated as equal manner. We have some natural questions on that, but we'll try to find out this, sort it out. But anyway, ultimate objective is, if someone finance the terror activities, it's become a offense. Right. The other related threats, proliferation of mass destruction weapons, producing of weapons which are able to kill the more and more people. Right? Right? More and more people. So those are the, now see, paramanu bomb killer, nuclear bombs, those are the things. If you produce it, or if you finance those kind of things, and if you give the financial support or support in another way, even provide the material or material related services, right? If someone wanted to produce the nuclear weapon, he will use your vehicle to transport it, right? That is also come under this as an offense. Whether you knowing or not knowing, if you are providing the support for these kind of activities, that is also wrong thing. That is also wrong thing. So that's what the right objective of the FATF. Right. Then the third one is, right, they are monitoring the member jurisdictions, countries. They monitor. That's the most important part. They monitor. The monitor means, right, there is a network of monitoring of these situations. There's a network. I will explain later on what this network is. Right? So each and every year, they will monitor each and every countries in the world. Each and every countries in the world. Right? Now remember that, right? If you say that each and every country mean, someone can have a question on that, whether all the countries are monitors. Yes. All the countries are monitors, right? Whether it's an independent country, whether it's a country come under another jurisdictions or territories, everything's monitored. Everything's monitored, right? And they're required to provide the report. Those monitors are required to provide the details report on the particular country or jurisdiction or territories to their annual meeting, which are held in different places, basically in Paris. At this Paris meeting, they will review the situations. If they are not satisfied the country situation, that particular country situations, they will take the actions against that country, right? Actions against the country. Now, what are the actions they can take? What are the actions they can take? There are different actions. Different actions. In broadly, now they have categorized those countries into three categories. Right? So if they find out any deficiencies of the system, they will put first stage is gray country. Right? Gray, right? Then second category is dark gray. So that means second step is more terrible than the first steps, right? Then the third category is blacklisting, right? Gray, dark gray, and black. For the moment, remember that I'll explain you details in later. Gray means there are some embargo on financial transactions. You cannot undertake certain financial transactions that depend on the action recommended by the FATF at their annual meeting. Right? And then, so if they identified any type of deficiency in the system, they will give you the time frame, and the first phase is gray list. Usually, they will give the 2 years for to rectify it. 2 years. If you are not in the position, or otherwise, if you have failed to rectify those things, right, those countries were transferred into dark A category. Then this embargo is much tougher than the gray list. Much tougher. Right? Then, even within this scenario, if you are not complied, this body will put those countries in the blacklist. So blacklist means no country can do the transaction with this particular country. Nobody are allowed to undertake any business, any financial transactions with this particular country. There are 2 countries right now, right? North Korea and Iran. Nobody, no country are allowed to undertake any transactions, any trade with these 2 countries. If they find out any country have any transactions or trade or financial right? Transaction. So banking transaction in these two countries, FATF, they will take the embargo on these countries, 100% embargo. That's the danger of this institutional framework, right? Can we live without any help of the other countries, country like ours?
So what is
We
the other
cannot.
country? North Korea, and what is the other one?
Iran. Right? You cannot take any actions, any trade with them, right? So remember that each and every annual meeting, they will review the position of these countries. But 2020, there was no meeting because of this corona issue. Therefore, the countries who were in these three categories in 2019 continue same as the 2020. Now is come to the 2021 as well. Because those FATF, they were not able to visit those countries, those who are subject to these, right, gray, dark gray and blacklisted countries, to check whether they are compliant or not. We call it as a country assessment. They haven't undertaken any country assessment. They are meeting in virtual, like you and me right now. Going through that process, they cannot evaluate the real situation of the particular country. So in that sense, the country, those who were in this list at the end of the 2019, right, continue for 2020. I don't know whether they can get rid of these lists in 2021 as well, right? That's the situation right now, right? We also had a situation like this. The Sri Lanka, we had a, right? We were in this grey list twice, right? So luckily, the second time we were removed from this grey list at the mid of 2019. If we are not done if you are not taken our action in proper time, we will also continue up to now, right? Luckily, we have done it, right? So when we are talking about the FI operation, I will explain you what we have done these two occasions, right? Just to show you over here, right? Just to show you that they are monitoring mechanism and action they are taking on that, right? Action they are taking on that, right? Hope you could understand those things up to now, right? Okay. Then the monitoring the member jurisdiction, identify national level vulnerabilities with other international stakeholders, right? I'll show you this. What are the stakeholders of these, right? Supporters of these FATF activities. There are a big list on that, right? So FATF alone with that, they cannot measure the country. That's the one organization. They have a network of monitoring mechanism. So they will get the support of those countries as well to check whether we are vulnerable to money laundering or not, right? So they are getting the stakeholders, right? Support. The IMF we talked, right? Last week, that's the one of the key institutions. I told you, if there's any short, right, financial crisis, if you need the short-term finance, I told you this, we have to go for the IMF. Less than 2-year borrowings, right? Even under this category, IMF basically will focus how these jurisdictions, are there any money laundering deficiencies? Are they following the FATF standards properly? What are the action reaction they have taken? Those are the number one if the IMF also come into the country. That's what right now you can understand the identify national vulnerabilities with other international stakeholders. Even though they are not coming to FATF, may not visit to the particular country, other international organizations, those who are coming to the particular country, they are required to report our deficiencies. Based on that, they will take the actions. That's what I told you. That's the huge network. Now, whatever you have done, this FATF standards you cannot violate. Whether you go to each and every, where even the trade, purchase, agreements, borrowings, everywhere, these FATF standards will come. So that means the financial intelligence will come into the first phase. That's what the important part I just want to tell you now. Right. FATF responsibilities. Right. So those are the responsibilities they are doing. Right. Examining money laundering techniques and trends. Right. So whether they are money laundering techniques are happening over there, any kind of things are happening in the particular country, they are reviewing the actions taken at the national and international level. So now, if they find out any kind of money laundering things are happening over there, if the particular agency in the country, if they have not taken actions on that, right? So they are reviewing the actions, national and international level. Now see, I forgot to tell you one thing, right? So implementation agency of these FATF recommendations are vested with the financial intelligence units. Financial intelligence units of the country. Right? So in the Sri Lankan financial intelligence of Sri Lanka, FIU Sri Lanka, now housed at the central bank. At the central bank as an independent authority. That's the must conditions. Right, independent authority. We are the people who implementing those recommendations. Right, those recommendations with the support of other relevant agencies. Right? When I talk about if I show you the history of that, right? So that's what our system, FIU Sri Lanka. Right. So I have been fortunate to work for more than 10 years, huh? Right? Anyway. Right, examine the money laundering techniques and trend, reviewing the action taken at national and international level, setting out the measures need to be taken at the combat money laundering. Right? As I mentioned earlier, they examine these situations, review the action taken by the national and international level, and setting out the measures needed to be taken to combat money laundering. They will give the kind of set of action plan to be fulfilled under stages I have mentioned you, dark gray and the blacklisting situations. Recommendation first issued 1990, the revised in 1996, and 2003, 2004, and 2012. 2012, those are the last revisions. But there was a proposal in 2019 to revise it again because of the situation in international level, corona situation that has been postponed. Hope that another 1 or 2 years time, right after these corona outbreaks were right in a good terms, they will revise the standards again. But even under these situations, they have revised certain recommendations to promote the online transactions, and while doing so, they have identified certain threats. So we have to take the mitigatory measures on that. Okay. So these recommendations in 1990, those are purely in money laundering, right? 40 recommendations for money laundering. 2003, right after the attack to the US, terrorist attack to the US, 2003, there are 8 terrorist financing recommendations. So we call it as a 40 plus 8 recommendations. Then again, another recommendations come in 2004. Things become 40 plus 9 recommendations. 40 plus 9 recommendations. We call it 40 plus 9, right? So those are we have to comply. Those are we have to comply, right? So 2012, right? So considering all those recommendations, all these recommendations, 40 plus 9 recommendations, and development in the weapon of mass destruction, nuclear weapons, they have rearranged those recommendations into 40, right? 40. Now we have 40 recommendations to be fulfilled, right? Those recommendations we need to comply, right? If you are not comply these 40 recommendations, they will take the actions, right? That's what the issue. Now Sri Lankan situation I will show you later when you are talking about the 5 operations, right? So out of these 40 actions, now we have completed more than 2/3 of the recommendations. So that's why we are got out from the grey list. Right. Let's see. We'll talk that part later. Okay. Right. FATF issued a set of 40 recommendations or comprehensive plan of action in 1990 to fight against money laundering. That's in 1990. Then the development of standards in fight against terrorist finance in October 2001 led to the issue of 8 special recommendations to deal with terrorist financing. Financing of terrorist activities. In 2004, 9th special recommendation for the strengthening the international standards for combating terrorist financing is become a 40 plus 9 recommendation, which I told you. In February 2012, the thorough review of these existing standards and revisions they have conducted. So 19 to 2011, they look at the situation of each and every country, whether those countries have implemented those standards. Are there any practical difficulties of implementing it? And whether they want to take the tough measures on that. And by the time they look at any kind of money laundering vulnerabilities and terrorist financing vulnerabilities in the world, and including that, 2012 recommendations were set for the compliance, right? Set for the compliance. That's how it was happened. So according to the objective of the 2012 revisions, right? 2012 revision was intend to strengthen the global safeguards, economic and financial system safeguard. Then the further protect the integrity of the financial system, because always these criminals, they are using the financial system to transfer their money here and there. Because of that, they wanted to safeguard the integrity of the financial system. What is this integrity? Right? What is this integrity? The trustworthiness of the particular financial system. Trustworthiness of the financial system. if you breach the trust, right, nobody will come into that. Now that is what still we are having the trust with the American financial system. Still we have a trust with the American financial system. Still we have European financial system. Those are the two major financial hubs. So even under those kind of threats, almost all the countries, they trust the financial system of these two areas, especially US system, because they are safeguarding their system in a maximum manner, right, targeting their objectives. And you haven't seen any kind of cyber attack to the American system? Yes, you can see, but they will take the immediate action to rectify it, not like ours, right? Yesterday's cyber attack, still we are trying to find out what are the cause of that, right? So this American banking system and financial, they handle entire global financial system and the banking system. But if something goes wrong, within a second, they will find out what are the reasons on that. So that's why all the people are keeping the trust of this financial system and their right banking system. That's what the integrity is most important. If you breach the trust for the moment, even the 1 decimal point, people won't trust you, especially in case of financial matters, right? In case of financial matters, that's what the integrity is most important. That's what the right intend to strengthen global safeguard, further protect the integrity of the financial system. Not only the finance system, even the people also should have this integrity, right? If you don't have integrity, if you're not honest, right? If you're not up to your words, right? People won't believe you. People won't believe you. That's what, right? So providing government with the stronger tools and take actions against the financial crime, right? Based on the recommendations, each and every government can take stronger tools to take action against the financial crime. So what they are doing is they provide the right way of happening this financial crime and the method of happening this financial crime. So then they can provide the right correct actions at that point. That's what the expectations. So right. Again, the objective of the 2012 revisions deal with the new threats such as financing of proliferations of weapon of mass destructions. What is this mass destructions? Killing the people in mass scale, not 1 or 2 people. Not 1 or 2 people. Right? You might have seen that, right? Not last 10-15 years, right? When that was happening in some countries, Middle Eastern countries, right? Destruction of the people, killing of the people. They have used new weapons. Small weapons can destroy more area and more people, right? That's called mass destructions. Right now, see nuclear. And very recently, they have found out various type of instrument and the bomb, explosive, which can damage the particular area using the very smaller gadget, very smaller bomb. Those are the mass destruction weapons, right? Lead with the threat such as financial proliferation of weapons and mass destructions. Then before that, there are some gray areas of the standards, depending on the argument and implementations. So they were much clearer on the transparency of the earlier regulations. So we had a 40 plus 9 recommendations, right? 40 plus 9 recommendations, right? 40 plus 9 recommendations. There are some argument about the interpretation of these recommendations. Interpretation of these recommendations. Right. Interpretation of the recommendations. So that's what they wanted to more clear and transparency of these regulations. Then the sixth one, tough on corruptions. Tough on corruptions. Now the good subject even to talk in each and every country perspective. Corruptions was one of the predicate offense come under the money laundering, right? But the standards at that time was not adequate to cover all the corruption scenario, right? So because of that, they wanted to have separate standards to, right, mitigate these corruption issues, tough on the corruptions, right? Now you can have the question now, how can we do it? Let me to explain it later, right? Remember that, okay. Any special features of the 2012 revisions? 2012 revisions. The 9 special recommendations on terrorist financing have been fully integrated with the measures against the money laundering. Right? Those 9 special recommendations which we had earlier, 40 plus 9 recommendations, those 9 were integrated into that 40 recommendations. Because earlier we had 40 plus 9, those 40 recommendations on money laundering are different, and 9 special recommendations on terrorist financing are different. Now those 2 are integrated. Integrated means now it's become a one scenario. The money you earn legally or illegally, if someone is providing those money to undertake any terrorist financing activities, that's become a criminal. Earlier there was a kind of gray area, whether it's legal or illegal. How can we define a legal and illegal? Those are the things. Now, see, as I mentioned you, one can provide the money for this terrorist group on voluntary basis, right? He's willing to give in the money. But if someone is forced to give this money, right? Someone is forced to give this money, right? Can we treat it as a real terrorist financing? Those are the questions at that time. Right? At that time, law also there, okay, whether you give it voluntary basis, so, right, forcefully, that's become a terrorist financing. So we had those kind of limitation even in this, right, LTT wartime. How can we define it, right? Now, perhaps you might have noticed that there are some group, right, they collect the money from the people in the PETA market, forcefully. They're asking to give some donations, contribution to this particular organization, LTT, and monthly they will come and collect it. The people are not willing to give those money, but because of their activities and forcefully collecting those money, they have to give this money. Otherwise, they will kill those particular individuals, right? That's the kind of issue, whether our law is much clear about those kind of activities. Because I'm not willing to give this money, but I have to give. Otherwise, I cannot survive, right? So in that sense, it's a terrorist financing, no, not. That's the kind of critical issue we also had that time. So to be much clear on that, these terrorist financing recommendations now come into the, right, 40 recommendations, fully integrated the measures against the money laundering. That's a simple example I give you. To ensure the recommendation remain up to date and relevant. Up to date and relevant. Now remember that most of these money laundering recommendations were formulated in 1990, right after the 1989 meeting. Time being, right after the 20-25 years after, these money laundering techniques and methods were changed. Money laundering techniques are changed, methods were changed. Even the terrorist financing techniques and methods were changed, right? Because terrorists, they won't use same method 2 times. That's what the special feature of that. They are not willing to use same methods, right? Undertake in a different time, in a different locations. Why? The particular forces also, government forces also. Now see, if something, say that for example, during the wartime, suicide bombing happened, right? It happened in different way, right? Difficult to understand. They will come as a passenger. They will come as a gentleman. They will come as a minister. They will come as a patient in the ambulance. Those are the method time to time they have a use. They have use, right? Sometimes they came as a beggar. Nobody care on that. Are you caring about the beggars? No. But those methods were used the terrorists at that time, right? So this is the issue, right? At that time, the trend and method were changed, right? Those methods need to be addressed to ensure the recommendation remain up to date and relevant, and intend to be a universal applications, common to each and every country. It's very difficult, but they were trying to applications of those recommendations in universal manner. Why I say it's different and difficult? Because the legal systems are different. Economic systems are different. Economic models are different. Administrative arrangements are different, right? The social beliefs are different. Because of that, you can't find the universal application of these standards in a similar manner. That's what they wanted to. They are trying to apply it in a similar manner, common to each and every country. Otherwise, one country say that, okay, in our country we cannot do it because our belief and perceptions are like this, right? So to address those kind of practical issue, they wanted to have revisions. Now 2012 revisions also now in the mode of reform, but that won't happen next couple of years. But perhaps right after 2012 might be two type of set of standards will come to the world. Then the monitoring. Look at the monitoring. The progress of its members in implementing the necessary measures. This monitoring mean, might they give me 2 minutes? 2 minutes, sir. Sorry, I have taken the 30 seconds from you all. Okay, right. The progress in member countries in implementing necessary measures. So how they monitor, right? As I mentioned earlier, they will review the progress of the implementations. There might be review team will come to the countries. Otherwise, those international bodies like IMF, World Bank, they will come and review the situations. Otherwise, they will ask the relevant implementation agency in the particular country, say FIU, Financial Intelligence Unit, to show their progress at the annual meetings. Annual meeting. There are direct and indirect methods to do it. That's what the monitoring mechanism. Few money laundering and terrorist financing techniques and countermeasures. They will review. Obviously, money launderers and terrorist financing, as I mentioned earlier, they will change their methods. The method they use, they won't do it tomorrow. Right? So, method you used in the, 2 weeks ago, they won't never use. They will come up with the new ideas and new methods. Right? Likewise, they have different methods to do it. One example I will tell you, I will want to share with you. Now, perhaps you might have seen this cash courier. Those who are taking money out of the country. Right? Foreign currency, dollars. These days, dollars are much valuable currency. There are various ways they are using to transport to take out of the country and take into the country. Various kind of criminals. Right? So sometime back, I'll share my experience with you. Sometimes they use these traveling bags. That's the old method. Traveling bags. And they had a kind of separate room in the traveling bag. Inside, they keep the money over there. That's one method. Right? Now I'm teaching you the methods of doing this money laundering. Right? So take it, and those component is not transparent. Even this custom detector cannot undertake it. No detections. That's the one way. Right? Then if those things are happening over there, they used to some pretty girls to transport this money. They will come to the counters, custom and borders. They have a kind of nice laughing with these custom officers, right? And they vanish from the customs. And sometime they had a kind of link with these custom officers and other airport authorities. Right, the second way. That's a natural, ne? Huh? Right. The third way, they use scan resistant jacket. Scan resistant jacket. Right? Jacket means inside of the jacket, money were packed. You see, like this. And he will have a jacket. And once he come into the custom queue, he take off the jacket and keep it in his hand. Right? Otherwise, so jacket will be thrown out to his packages. Nobody care on that. Because that's a jacket. You see? The jacket become a million worth of jacket, because inside of the jacket, even these legs, bodies, any part of that, they keep the money over there, and there are some patches over there. So that's what those kind of things are. Those are the methods they have used. Now what they have right now doing is, so keep this parcel right? They will send this parcel first. Parcel first. Right? Otherwise, real guy is not getting this parcel. He will send it through his agent. If the agent catch up the customer police or someone else, that guy freely moving out. On behalf of me, that particular guy go to the prison. Then I am taking care of him very well. That's the method, right? Those are the methods right now using by the people, but there are latest type of methods. We'll discuss it once we come to those kind of techniques. Progress of the member implementing the right necessary measures. Review money laundering and terrorist financing technique and countermeasures. Promote to adapt the implementation of appropriate measures globally. Right? How they are going to global implementations. Right? Not only is not adequate for us to implement it domestically, we have to show it in the global. We have taken these type of measures. That's how they believe you. Right? It should be transparent. Now remember that I'll show you one example. Hope most of you all have been going to Singapore. Vacations, holidays, picnic, trips. In the Singapore custom, they don't care about you unless they have a specific checkup. In that sense, people will think that very easy to enter and leave the Singapore. Right? It's not in that way. Right? Remember that once you enter into the Singapore airport to the country, they have a specific monitoring mechanism about you. Where are you staying? Where are you going? What are the people are monitoring and meeting? What are the shops you have gone? Everything's monitored by now. Right? That's what they are real monitoring mechanism. But under that conditions also, there are some vulnerabilities. That's what I just want to highlight you. If you are 100% perfect on that, right? Those money laundering and terrorist financing things are happening. So that's why the promote to adapt and implementation of appropriate measures globally. Now I just want to highlight you how this monitoring mechanism is. Now FATF members and observers. Now each and every country cannot be a member. Each and every country cannot be a member. To become a member of Financial Action Force, you must fulfill certain criteria. Certain criteria. Certain criteria, as I mentioned at the beginning, economically you must sound. Should be high GDP. And your banking system and the financial system should be prominent. Prominent. And at least most of the people are trust and use your banking system and the financial system. And your GDP, real GDP should be higher. Your trade volume should be higher. That's how they, right, measure the criteria, become a member. But otherwise you cannot be a member, right? And there are two categories of countries, members and observers. Right? Observers mean now you are eligible to be a member of the FATF. But they are keeping you for a certain period as an observer. You have to check your behavior. Whether the data, information you have provided is correct. You are really rich, your financial system really important. Likewise, they will check whether, right, whether you can be a member of the FATF or not. That's the measures they have taken. Now see, what are the right members of this country? In 1991, 1989, the FATF was formed. 1990, this first set of standards were issued. 1991, 16 countries become a member. Those are almost European countries with US. Prominent economics, UK, USA, Switzerland, France, Belgium, German, like that. Then 1990s become a 20. Then 2031, 2014, right? 2014, 34 member jurisdictions and 2 regional organizations. Regional organizations also can be a member, right? 34 countries. In 2018, total membership become 39, 37 countries and 2 regional organizations. Thereafter, no members were admitted. 2009 and 2020, right? There are no members because of this corona also is spread in 2019. Because of that, there are no evaluation of the member countries, right? So that's what these 2 years, there are no members, but perhaps 2021, 2022, 1 or more country will come as a member, right? We'll see what are those countries, right? Those are the countries now members of the FATF. Members of the FATF. Now see, there are 2, hope you can see those presentations. The European Commissions and, right, Gulf Cooperation Council. Those are not countries, those are the kind of associations. European Commissions and Gulf Cooperation Council. Those are the 2 organizations now become a members of the FATF. Right? Look at what are the countries in our area. Only the India is a member. Southeast Asia. Right? SAARC regions, only India is a member. Southeast, we have Singapore and Malaysia. Right? Singapore and Malaysia. Right? Now, right, where is this? Those are the member countries. Now, you see, Indonesia is an observer countries. Where is it? I'll show you it later. Now, right now, since 2008, Indonesia is an observer country. Observer country means before they become a member of the FATF, at least they have to be in this observer status for 2 years. 2 years. Now, this is the year, perhaps they might consider as a member. To become a member, they have to fulfill all the criteria as I mentioned. Until then, they have to be an observer, right? They don't have a power as a member. Indonesia. Now, in addition to the members, right, this entire world is divided into 9 regions. FATF, right? For the administrative purpose and implementation purpose, world is divided into 9 regions. 9 regions. 9 regions. Right? That's for the monitoring purpose. Monitoring purpose. Right? Those 9 regional organizations are here, right? Asia Pacific Group on Money Laundering, which are APG, we call it as APG, right? Monitor Asia and Pacific countries. Pacific countries. Right? All the Asian countries like Sri Lanka is a member of it. Member of it. Right now we have 41 members, except North Korea in our regions. That's the one and only country right now haven't a financial entity unit, but now they are come up with the framework. No sooner they will be, right, member of the APE. 41 countries. Then Caribbean Action Task Force, CFATF, we call it a CFATF. All the Caribbean countries are member of that. In the next one, Council of European Committee of Experts on Evaluation of Anti-Money Laundering and Measures and the Financing of Terrorism. We call it as a money wall. Basically, right, Middle Eastern countries and part of the European countries. Then the Eurasian group, EAG, right, EAG. Then the Eastern and Southern African Anti-Money Laundering Group, SAMLAC. The Financial Action Task Force of Latin America, right, CAFILAT. Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, CHIABA. Middle East and North Africa Financial Action Task Force, MINAFATF. The Task Force on Money Laundering and Central Africa, CABAC. So those are the institutions come under the FATF, which implement FATF recommendations, right? All the countries are member of these 9 regions, right? 9 organizations. You cannot be a work in isolated manner without being member of any of these organizations, right? Any of these organizations. Observer country, as I mentioned you, until now, since 2018, Indonesia is an observer country. Perhaps they might get the membership in this year, 2021. There might be 2 countries are willing to admit as observer status, but Sri Lanka is not there, I don't think, right? So they will be in the observer status for 2 years if Indonesia become a member this time. But we cannot guarantee on that because their admission policy is so strict. In addition to that, there are some observer organizations. Observer organizations, those are not member of the FATF, but they are working on behalf of the FATF. They are working on behalf of the FATF. They will report if they find out any deficiencies of the particular countries. If they evaluate those particular countries, their evaluations are sharing with the FATF. Those are the observer countries. The following international organizations have observed status of FATF. These international organizations also have a specific money laundering mission or function among other functions. That's what I told you. Now, when we talk about the IMF, their functions and objectives are different. But right now, they are working as an observer for FATF. They also undertaking certain money laundering monitoring mechanism. So if they find out any kind of violation of the particular country, they will report it to the FATF. Right? I want to share my experience on this field. Perhaps you might know that Sri Lanka obtained the temporary relief missions from the IMF, temporary loan, to set off the balance of payment deficiency. They will come and make annual evaluations. Team of the IMF will visit to Sri Lanka and they will make an evaluation of the country. Under their evaluations, there are a specific component on money laundering and terrorist financing. So in order to get the clarifications and justifications, they will come and see the FIU officials. They will meet the direct FIU and the director FIU have to provide all the justifications and action they have taken to fulfill the FATF requirements. If the IMF not satisfied about the steps they have taken, FIU taken, they have also to recommend not only the IMF to the FATF saying that Sri Lanka is in such a situation, so you better look into that. And even they can recommend the IMF board, controlling board, saying that Sri Lanka has these deficiencies. So when you are providing the assistance or loan, those factors to be considered. That's the important part. That's what the job of the FATF observer organizations, right? These international organizations also have specific anti-money laundering missions or function among the other functions. So that's been very difficult to survive now, right? Whatever the international organizations come into that, part and parcel, they have a mission about the money laundering and terrorist financing, right? Those are the FATF observer organizations. African Development Bank, right? That's like in Asian Development Bank. Asian Development Bank focus the development lending in the Asian countries. Likewise, there is African Development Bank. They are focusing the development of the African regions, right? African Development Bank's observer organization. Then the Anti-Money Laundering License Committee of the Francophone, CLB, that is in the Middle European countries, right? This is also one of the observer organization. Then as I mentioned earlier, Asian Development Bank. If you are getting the development loans from the ADB, Asian Development Bank, part and parcel, they are reviewing the anti-money laundering mechanism as well. I had a chance to have a discussion with them, and we have taken the assistance to remedify and rectify our deficiencies from this ADB, because all these international agencies, they have, right, several action, several funds, several allocation, several experts to remedify these money laundering deficiencies. Then the Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, BCB, yes, we are going to talk later, right after this, right? Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions. That's a bank supervisory regulator which was formed in 1930, right after the financial crisis, economic crisis in the world, right? They also have a responsibility of these actions. Then Ekman Group of Financial Intelligence Unit. The Ekman Group is another organization which directly involving FIU activities, right? Ekman Group. Ekman Group, right? I will explain you right now in a short form. Ekman Group is a Ekman Group. Ekman Group is a combination of all FIUs, right? Ekman is a name of the Belgium city. First meeting was held in there, right? Thereafter, this group was named as Ekman Group. Ekman Group. We are a member of Ekman Group since 2009, I believe. Yes, 2009. We are a member, right? So, right, 2009, right? Yes, sir. Right? I became in 2008-19. I became a governing committee member of this. Governing committee member in 2019, and right, APG, Asia Pacific representative. It's the first time we got the chance to enter the Ekman. Right. So the segment group of financial intermediaries, that is also one of the monitoring body come under the FATF. So they also monitoring the each and every country. Then the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD, that's limited to European countries. European Central Bank, ECB, the European countries, EU countries, they have one central bank. We will call this a European Central Bank, ECB. Then the Eurojust, right? European countries, right? Judicial system. Eurofol, it is similar to Interpol. That's a law implementing agency in the European countries. Group of International Financial Center Supervisors, right? Group of International Financial Center Supervisors. This is a financial supervisors collective, right? Model. Collective model. Hello. Yes. Yeah.
So these observation units, like example like African Development Bank and Asian Development Bank,
Right.
all are similar part of this category, or they are having a unique part to carry on?
Here, now everybody is required to follow the FATF recommendations, right? Each and every country through their network. But these international agencies, which I mentioned, I am mentioning over here, they have a certain obligation with the FATF to check whether each and every country is adhere to those terms and conditions, standards, right? So once they evaluate the country for their purpose, they are evaluating the FATF requirement as well. That's what I told you, right? Now see, for example, if the ADB is a development lender for the Asian regions, while they are assessing and evaluating the particular country, now say for example, if the ADB is giving loan to the Sri Lanka for any purpose, say road development, agriculture, whatever, they look at whether we are implementing the FATF requirement as well, right? If you're not satisfied about the particular aspect, and this particular grant or loan will be subject to conditions. Subject to condition means yes, you have to fulfill this FATF requirement. Till then, we are not giving the facility, right? Likewise, that's a subjective one. And not only that, each and every annual general meeting, FATF annual general meeting, right? They will report the deficiency of the particular country to that particular meeting. Then, now remember that. Right? Let me explain the operational now. FATF, right? Usually they have 3 times of annual meeting. 3 times of annual meeting, right? February, July, November, right? Okay. Then these 3 annual meetings, they will review the position of the each and every country. They will review the report. No, sorry. Report by, right? Which I mentioned these 9 regional organizations plus observe organizations. Observe organizations. Taking into consideration all these reports and presentation at the FATF AGM, right? The action to be decided by the FATF about the particular country, say Sri Lanka, right? Even though ADB mandate is different, now they are looking at the FATF implementation as well. Can you follow me?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Then that's important, right? The ADB is not doing their job, they are doing the FATF job also. ADB find out any kind of loopholes in our FIU system or implementations, they will report it to the regional organization called APG, right? and then FATF. And also inform trust also, FIU. Right? Through their evaluation, they have found out this deficiency. They inform the FIU to rectify it. Then they will go to the APG in our next authority, regional authority APG, and then go to the FATF. That's what I told you. The system is tougher than the earlier now. Each and every international organization which are providing the assistance to us, now they evaluate the money laundering process in this country. Hope you can follow me, right? Right, not only that, right? So we are a member of the Egmont group. Egmont also come and look at that. It's not an easy task for us to survive in the FIU. Because monitors are coming, right? Regional monitors, international monitors, FATF monitors, all those people are come and monitor. That's what the FIU become a tough. Right, okay, Eurofall, Group of International Financial Center Supervisors, Inter-American Development Bank, International Association for Insurance Supervisors, right, International Monetary Funds, International Organization of Security Commissions, Interpol, as a policy organizations, Organization of American State, Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, Organization of American State, Inter-American Drug Abuse Control Commissions, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, that's based on Paris, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, OSCE, Task Force on Money Laundering in Central Africa, World Bank, World Customs Organizations, and United Nations, UN. UN, they have separate organizations. Mostly involved organization with the FATF and the FIUs are United Nations Office of Drug and Crime, UNODC, United Nations Counterterrorism Committee on Executive Directorate, UNCTAD, the Analytical Support and Sanction Monitoring Team to the Security Council, Committee 1267, right? That's the committee which monitor, right, sanctions and Security Council resolutions. Perhaps you might have seen that Security Council of the United Nations, they will impose certain sanctions on the various kind of terrorist group. Al-Qaeda, that's the one famous one. Likewise, so they can have some monitoring mechanism, and they will also take the actions against the terrorist financing and terrorist activities. So all those things are also organization of the FATF. You can see the huge network working on these aspects. Whatever the supervisors, their main body of the international level, custom, insurance, securities, bank, it's become also organization of the FATF. That's what I told, it's a huge organizations. Right. Again, the United Nations, the expert group for Security Council committee established pursuant to the resolution 1540, panel of expert of Security Council committee established pursuant to the resolution 1718, panel of expert established pursuant to the Security Council resolution 1921, the Al-Qaeda and Taliban Sanction Committee. Right. Those are the institutions. Right. Now you can see the network which are having this aspect. Now remember that even though we are talking about the money laundering and terrorist financing, right? Money laundering and terrorist financing, if you look at the world international scenario, network is so huge. Network is so huge. Now remember that even under that situations, criminals are taking action on that. Right? They are more clever to breach or active on these activities. Right? Money transfer can be happen. So, right? Money courier can be happen. Illegal weapons can be transferred. Illegal drugs can be come and go, right? Those things are happen in different ways and different form. That's what the challenge of all the FIUs, FATF, ECMANS, committee, and other international organizations are facing right now. Okay. Any questions on this subject now before I move to another topic? FATF or ECMAN, no, right? But in details, we are going to discuss those things again. ECMAN and this FATF, but FATF I'm not going to discuss again and again. I just want to give you, it's a powerful regulator. It's a powerful regulator, right? It's covered each and every country of the world. They have a network, very strong network to monitor, right? They have regional organizations like APG, JABAR, CPETAF, world divided into 9 regions, right? FATF, top of that, FATF divided into 9 regional organizations, right? All the countries in the world come into these 9 regional organizations. In APG, Asia Pacific region, we have APG, we have 41 countries, right? In addition to that, in between there is ECMAN group, that's also monitor. Then this side, we have a lot of international organizations, plus UN, United Nations, UN, right? So here is the countries, Sri Lanka. Now remember the network we are having, right? FATF through their 9 bodies, right? They will monitor country, Sri Lanka. The ECMAN group as a separate entity, they will monitor those things. And this UN also monitoring it. And these other international organizations also monitor it. So it's a huge monitoring mechanism over here. But even under these situations, there are some countries, those who are engaged in money laundering and terrorist financing. Here. That's the serious. That's what we have to identify, money laundering techniques and trends. Time to time, those are different, right? Time to time, those are different. Okay.
So what is the advantage to a country becoming a member of FATF compared to a country which is not a member of the FATF?
I'm sorry, what is the advantage of what?
Becoming a member of FATF compared to a country which is not a member of FATF?
Oh, no, here, now remember that, now the membership of the FATF is not easy, right? Once you become a FATF member, right, usually they will think that it's a compliant country to money laundering and terrorist financing. Not 100% compliant, but they are giving the satisfactory rating on the particular country, saying that it is a okay and the good country of implementing the FATF recommendations. There's an advantage of that. Because then once you become a FATF member, you are a recognized country in the world. Right? But now you may have a questions again. Now India is become a member. Right? Right? India has become Malaysia become a member. Singapore become a member. But there are some criticism about the particular countries. There are some criticism about the particular countries. But I am not going to talk on that details. But even under these criticisms, right, they become a member. So that means they are trying to get the advantage of becoming a FATF umbrella. Right? Once you become a member, but there is no room to undertake money laundering or terrorist financing activities. They are subject to more, right, scrutinized agencies, right, within the FATF organization network. Because, right, I know the toughness of these, right, toughness of this action taken by the Sri Lanka, because we were 2 times we were in the grey list, 2012 and 2018, right? I had a chance to lead this, my team to overcome this situation in these 2 situations, right? So I have good experience on that. We remedify, right, these 2 situations in the country, and we had a lot of embargo from other countries, especially in the European and American countries and the financial sectors. There are tough action they have taken. But within 1 or 2 years' time, we find out the remedies of that. It's not easy to comply with that because the locally and internationally we have a lot of pressure on that. So being the director FI is a not fortunate job. Right? That's what I'm telling you. Right? So, but anyway, ultimately I have rectified all those things in the Sri Lankan context. We had a good marks from these old organizations. That's what in 2018 I become a APG governing board member and the APG representative of Egmont Group. And 2018 I become a chair of the APG also, because of the reputation I gained from working in a Sri Lankan context. Right? That's the important. We build up the Sri Lankan purview in the international market as a good country. But it's a depend on the action to be taken later on. But you know that they are monitoring each and every year. Each and every time they are monitoring us. If something goes wrong on the system, again they will come and, right, take the necessary action on us. You can't say that 2018 is a good country, Sri Lanka, but 2020 we are also similar situation, similar status. If something goes wrong in our economy or financial system, right, they might take the action even though we are in a good country in 2018 or 2019. That's the seriousness. But only advantage you are talking here is, once you become a compliant country to each and every aspect of this, each and every financial institution trust you, believe you. Right? Trust and believe you. Your financial transaction will be much easier than the other countries. They will give the prominence for you. Open the account, do the transactions. If you become a grey listing or blacklisting, your financial transaction become much tougher. Bank won't you do the transaction with you, right? In 2018, the second grey listing, so we had difficulties. There was no money coming to the country from the European market because European Commission take the tough actions again, saying that Sri Lanka is not much compliant country to our regulations. But we had to take much effort to show that. We changed some legal aspect also, right? So that's what we regained the situations. Now, the results, once you become a grey list or, right, dark grey or blacklist, results to the economy and banking sector is not much favorable. Very damaging. Now, we are totally dependent on the import and export. Our import, more than 20% of our import go for the crude oil. If there is a restriction by the international bank, we cannot undertake any type of import or export because banks are not facilitating our transactions. If there is some embargo on the particular country, bank, those who are providing such facilities, also subject to the sanctions. That's the kind of issue. Perhaps you might have seen that Iran central bank deputy governor also sacked by the international organizations, right? Because they have undertaken the various type of transaction with other countries under this situation, because Iran was blacklisting country now. They cannot undertake any transaction from each and every other country. They have a travel embargo also. Iranian people cannot travel. And they have identified certain individuals in these countries not to travel, and if they travel somewhere, international Europol or other agencies will take them into custody. That's how, right? That's a serious offense. That's why we want to comply. Because country like ours, we are a smaller country. We don't have big economy. We don't have much reserves. Counterattack. Because of that, we have to comply to each and every aspect. That's what our scenario. Now, the country like Iran, they have much reserves, right? At least for a temporary period, they can resist on this tough action by the international monitors. but we cannot. We are a poor country. Frankly, we are telling that we are poor, right? We are not developed country. We don't have reserves, right? That's what. Hope you can understand me, right?
So one thing that if
Yeah.
that member countries,
Yeah.
they are not, I mean, like this APG or one, they are not giving reports on member countries. If they have found out something like, I mean, like a financial, what do you call that kind of a thing, are they reporting and they are taking action on that?
Even now, as I mentioned you, APG also, they have annual meeting once a year, right? For this annual meeting, right? Annual meeting, they will have evaluation on our country, right? There will be a team from other countries. They will visit Sri Lanka and they will evaluate, especially if it is listed by the FATF as a grey list or dark grey or black list. There will be mission from the FATF and jointly APG. They will come and see our situation in the country, having the discussion with all the stakeholders in the country.
I'm talking about the member countries, sir. Member
Sorry?
countries, they are also reporting on the member countries as well.
Yes. Now, if we are not sharing any information to other member country, they will report us. Right? Now, see, we are doing the financial intelligence, FIU. We have to exchange financial intelligence with other FIUs as well. Right? Now, see, if I am not sharing, now see, for example, take a simple example like this. Right? There are some Malaysian criminals, those who are living in Sri Lanka and undertaking the banking business over here. The Malaysian FIU find out those people are in Sri Lanka. They will ask report from us. There is my obligation to provide, right, report and information about the particular criminals, Malaysian criminals, those who are residing over here. Right? Whatever the available information, we have to provide. We have to share with the Malaysia. If the Malaysia is not satisfied about that, they can make a complaint to the APG, saying that Sri Lanka is not cooperative. That's become issue for us. Those are the things, points we come into that. But usually, country like us, Sri Lanka, we have more cooperative on other member countries, especially in Asia Pacific regional. Not only that, because of this Ekman group, we have Ekman charter, right? Being the governing board member, I know exactly what will happen, what Ron will go. So we know, right, 100% on that, where we have to do, where we have to involve, what are the information we have to provide. So we are sharing those information. So in that sense, there is no dispute between the member countries, right? We don't have any dispute. With whatever the information we are sharing, not only that, basically we have built up the trust with other countries. Those countries will provide all information for us. Yes, do you have any questions?
So if there's a possibility to once become a member, is there a possibility to losing the membership of a different issue?
Yes, of course. They can suspend our membership for a temporary period until we rectify. There are some countries. Now see, for Ekman group, if you look at the Ekman website, right, there are 5 countries Ekman, they have sacked membership. Temporarily we are sacked. If they are not fulfill our requirement, I'm sorry here, right? If they are not fulfilling the Ekman requirements or APG requirement, they have power to sack the country. Sack means you can't undertake any kind of transaction with other countries. That's what the issue, right? That's what the issue. Because of that, no country, they are not working for a second aspect. But there are some countries, Ekman group has sacked, but not their regional organizations, right? This Ekman group common to each and every country of the world, right? These FATF organizations, that's 9 bodies come under the FATF, right? Usually they are working with those countries, but in my perspective for last 10 to 12 years, APG haven't suspended any country unless North Korea, right? But Ekman, they have sacked few countries. They have sacked few countries, right? Before sack, they will give the kind of chance for these countries to comply. Step 1, 2, 3, like that, right? So step 1, 2, 3, like that. They also give the chance. Within that particular period, particular time frame, usually almost all the countries are complied. If you have any difficulty of complying it, you can ask for the extension, right? Even within this extension period, if you are not complied, ECMAN will take the action to sack the country and membership. It's a terrible issue, right?
How could a country like Brazil become a member there?
I'm sorry.
How could a country like Brazil become a member there?
Became member of what? Where? ECMAN?
FAT. Yes, no.
Brazil, I don't know whether they are. Brazil is there, right? Yes. Brazil is there. Why, what is the base on that, your questions?
Because it actually origin on the South American country, so
Yes.
it is sometimes popular about this drug trading and trafficking.
Yes. Now see,
So,
that's a good questions. Now, Brazil as a country, yes, they have taken a lot of drug trafficking measures. But part of their institutions, they are involved with the drug trafficking. Not only that, Venezuela and Mexico are similar situation, even Afghanistan, right? There are some huge issues with regard to the drug trafficking. But those are the illegal activities. But why FATF and those regional organizations looking at the mitigative measures they have taken, right? How many actions they have taken, how many detection they have taken, how many people they have arrested, what are the measures they have taken. Those are the things FATF evaluated. Now, as I mentioned you earlier, we can eradicate these crime and criminals through these countries. But what we have to take is we have to take a mitigatory measures, right? You cannot eradicate. You cannot eradicate power from each and every country. You can eradicate drug trafficking from each and every country. But there are some segment is working on that. Likewise, Latin American countries, they are famous for drug trafficking. African country like Afghanistan are famous for drug trafficking. Even under these tough conditions, they are taking some action to transport, sell those kind of items, right? But remember that it's a good or bad, that's a temporary. But later on, the particular individuals and particular organizations are come under their legal purview. Now remember that. Perhaps you might remember that. You know that there is one gentleman called drug kingpin in Mexico, right? Right? He has been killed, I think 9 months ago by the Mexican army forces, right? Kill an entire his area, like in LTT. Now remember that, okay, nothing to go on. Latin American countries, we had a war in northern area 25 years, right? Right? In the terrorist financing aspect, even though we had some issues, but government side, the government has taken the good action to mitigate that. Those are the things we have to justify and rectify at the particular meetings, right? So likewise, in a similar way, you can provide the kind of justification to take that, right? Action you have taken, that's enough for the compliance, right? Otherwise, you can't 100% eradicate country. Now, even now, look at the Sri Lanka. Now we become a comply country. But each and every day, we are seeing that drug transport, drug trafficking are happening, right? But if those things are not considering, but our forces, police they are taking the kind of action to mitigate that one. Those mitigatory parties, right? Right now we say that it's adequate, but there are some loopholes over there. We cannot say that 100% eradications can be in each and every country, but to certain excess, more than 90% we can do. But criminals, we cannot eradicate that one. Now see this American system was hacked by, I think 1 or 2 years back. Russian system was hacked by, right, 1 year back. In Japan system was hacked by, now Sri Lankan system hacked by yesterday, right? even though we say that we are 100% perfect, criminal can find out some loopholes to undertake these criminal activities, right? Only thing is, if we find out any kind of remedies for that one, that will be the advantage for us. We cannot eradicate it. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, sure.
Dealing with blacklisted countries is, I think, a issue for the our country.
Yes.
Isn't it? So
no, we cannot. We cannot. We are not dealing with the blacklisted country.
So,
no
but,
country can make a deal.
So, but I think Umawi project conducted by Iranian.
Well, that's the different. That's a different issue, right? We haven't done it. We haven't done it.
So, but
right?
Iranian people are working here, no?
No, that's right. But the project is undertaken, but we don't have any financial transaction with them now, right? They have now the government is in a problem to find out the way to settle their loans. That's how, right? But you know that here, you know that there are some sanctions people. If it is a sanctioned people, they cannot live and travel, right? Dealing with the money is a sanctions. That's what. My project is, come before that, even the blacklisting. Now we are facing the problem with regard to repayments of the loan they have taken. How can we pay? We cannot pay now. That's what the issue we are facing right now. Because we cannot pay through the financial system because no country is willing to undertake any type, because our payments are routed through American banking system. It's not facilitated. That's the difficulty, practical difficulty of that. Now it's accumulating. Okay, right. We will take a break now, 15 minutes break and come back. Okay. Right. Okay. Right. Now, do you have any questions regarding the previous topic we have covered? Before we go to this one? Any questions concerned on that? Okay, right. Let's see. Now we are going to talk about the Bank for International Settlement and Basel Committee, right? So Basel Committee and Bank for International Settlement, BIS and BC basically. But this is the very oldest regulatory authority, especially for the banking sector. Especially for the banking sector, biggest and old regulatory authority. All mean is, right, it's very old. So that has been established in 1930. Right? Established in 1930, now almost how many years? Right? How many years now? Huh? 90 years? Hmm? Right, okay. Yes, almost 90 years. By May of 2021, it's become a 91 years. Oldest international financial organizations, which is created right after the 1928 economic crisis, which led to the depressions of the economy. Hopefully, I have explained you at the first day, economic crisis which are happening in US, collapse of the New York share market, and the collapse of certain banking activities. To remedify it, they wanted to have a banking regulatory aspect, because at that time, banks were not regulated. They are not focused on the banking regulations, even though there are some smaller type of regulatory institutions within their countries. So internationally, they haven't had any kind of regulatory authority to support them. Support them mean if something goes wrong with this country, say country A, right? Country A, there should be a remedification mechanism by country B, right? So these helping organizations were not there, helping. Now see, if I'm in a financial crisis, at least I have to have a good friend to support me, right? If same things are happening in the same country, same regions, it's a difficult, right? Once I become a crisis, all my friends are in the crisis situations, right? So who is going to help me? Right? I have to find out another supporter. That's what it happened in US. US 1930 was a financial crisis. Banks become crisis situations. So they are trying to, right, help each other, which are not really help, because all are in a crisis. Because of that, internationally strong countries at that time, they thought to have a kind of mechanism to remedify these kind of situations. And they thought to someone have to be there to monitor banking activities, monitor, supervise, and regulate banking activities. And if something goes wrong, to remedify those particular crisis institutions. That's what they thought, to have a regulatory institution. Now see, the first lecture I talked about the economic crisis, right? Mitigation of economic crisis, set of regulations are required. So likewise, based on that, those institutions were created to remedify the situation. That's what the oldest regulatory authority. At the beginning, it's not powerful regulator, but later it's become a powerful regulator. Now the members of these institutions, Basel Committee, BIS, right? Bank for International Settlement, right? It's limited to the several countries. Right now, it's a 60-member central banks. Central banks are allowed to be a member. Central banks are allowed to be a member of these BIS, right? Represent the countries from around the world, those who are having 95% GDP. So that means most of the richest central banks are members of the BIS. Right? What do you think about Sri Lanka? Huh? Are we member of the BIS? Our central bank? No, we are not a member of BIS. We are not a member, but we are getting the assistance from the BIS. We are getting the assistance from the BIS. So that's what, there are more than 200 countries in the world, whether they are recognized by UN or not, right? Out of that countries, only 60 countries become a member. So that means you can imagine, those are the most richest countries. Those who are managing 9 to 95% of the world GDP, gross domestic product. So you can imagine, if you look at the 100% of the GDP of this world, gross domestic production of the world, 95% are held by these 60 member central banks, countries. Our central bank cannot be a member of these institutions because we cannot reach this development country level. Okay, right. In our area, Singapore become a member because Singapore is a developed country and the richest country, per capita GDP around $50,000, right? So how much is our GDP per capita? It's around 4,000 USD, right? So to become a 50,000, how long we have to go? You can predict it. Huh? Okay, forum for discussions, policy analysis and information sharing. That's the basically the starting point. In 1930, it's become a forum, not the bank.
So excuse me.
Sorry?
Excuse me. Going back to the topic that we discussed before the break.
Okay. FATF.
I've checked with Export Development Board website. They said we still exporting tea to Iran.
Yes.
So
we can, yes. Only thing is that's another scenario over there, right? Now there is some item can be export and import on a humanitarian ground. Right? Those who need the essential food and drug can be import. But only question is transfer of money. Transfer of money. Right? We can export tea to the Iran, yes, but how can we get the money? No way to find out the way. Right? Now the government is in the discussion process that instead of the getting money from the Iran, right, which you mentioned earlier, Umayyad loan can be settled or not. That's the deal, trade deal. Right? It is also under discussions. Right? Now see, even North Korea is a, that a blacklisted country, but countries can export medicinal product on the humanitarian ground. That is only for humanitarian ground, right? Other than that, there is no way to do it. But tea is an essential good for the human. That's the food and drug concept. It's become a tea. Tea can be sent. But even, right, there are, if exactly EDB's website says something on that, right? But practical scenario is different, my dear. Right? Practical scenario is different. Because the money cannot be transfers. Right? Which country, which bank are willing to transfer money to Sri Lanka through this export? Or that is the kind of discussions are underway to, right? Amicable settlement with Iran on loan we have taken and the export. There are also discussion about the exporters of the tea, right? Export of the tea, right? The amount they have export, value export to be settled within the Sri Lankan context by the Sri Lankan government. But I haven't seen that so far they have taken any action on that. Instead of the export value, Treasury will reimburse it. But it also not happened up to now. Latest, I don't know.
Thank you.
Right. That's the humanitarian ground, yes. Even now, can you remember that? Right, during the LTT war period, government and many international agencies provided the food and drug to the LTT group on humanitarian ground. And our government also provide some essential items to them on humanitarian ground. Right? Safeguard the population, people in this area. That's how they do. Right? Even now, see, even Middle Eastern war, right? Iran-Iraq war, right? That's the, this Nigerian crisis even now, right? The government forces are these other forces are fighting, but there are international organizations which involve the distribution of essential goods, foods and medicinal things, right? That's allowed under war. But only thing is, no country, you cannot support this terror group on humanitarian ground. That's become supporting the terror activities. Supporting the terror activities, right? That's what the difference, right? If some way, somehow, those essential goods and drugs are go to the terrorist group, that's come under the criminal offense. You must ensure that whatever the things are going to the particular country and only for use of the innocent people, those who are not involved with the violence and fighting activities, that is okay. That's what we will have a chance to export the tea, but check with the EDB, are there any limitations on that now? Right? Website can say anything on that. Right. Okay. Any questions on that? Any issues of the FATF blacklisting? Right. Now remember that one aspect, right after your question, I have to explain another aspect. Now, there are some vessels traveling Sri Lankan border to North Korea. Right? Sri Lankan border to North Korea. But remember that we are not allowed to entertain these any ships moving to North Korea. Now see, restriction to the vehicles, ships and other things are North Korea is restricted by international organizations, shipping agencies. They are not carrying anything. If anyhow, there are some oil tankers running into the North Korean sea, North Korean border, but those are not allowed to come into our territory. We are not allowed to come into those things in our territory. If we are allowed to come, those kind of ships which are carrying goods and services and oil to the North Korea, if you are allowed it, it become a crime, breach of the FATF recommendations. So we have to be very careful on that. That's what we have taken the action some time back, 1 year and 2 years back. We got the information in the international borders saying that some ships and oil tankers traveling to North Korea is reaching our territory, sea territory. But anyhow, we managed to not to allow those vehicles, those ships, those tankers to enter into our territory. But they can travel the international area. It's not our purview. It's beyond our purview. We have to within work on our purview sea area. That's how we manage it. Okay. Right. That's a forum of the discussion for analysis and information sharing among central bank. Right. This is basically at the initial stage. This is a discussion authority and a policy analysis authority and information sharing authority is among the central bank. Let's remember that. Only for the central bank, not for the other commercial bank. Right? Then the international financial and supervisory community. Then those discussions and outcome of those discussions can be shared later on, right? International financial and supervisory authorities. There are some countries, the supervisory authorities are different, independent from the central bank. Independent from the central bank. But in our country, right, bank supervisor is a part and parcel of the central bank. Our bank supervision department, on behalf of the central bank, carry out the bank supervisions. But there are some other countries, their supervisors are different from the central bank. Now see, Reserve Bank of, right, Federal Reserve Bank of America, and UK banking system, and EU countries, their bank supervisors are different from the central bank. It's an independent body. The central bank will take the policy decisions or the supervisory decision and regulatory decisions, and supervisory action will be taken by the separate institutions. That's what here we say it's a discussion forum among the central bank plus international financial and supervisory community, because if it is a different supervisor, right? Then the customers of the BIS, customers of the BIS are central bank and international organization we mentioned earlier, right? Central banks are, right, customers of the BIS, Bank for International Settlements. We also customer of the BIS, but we are not a member, right? An international organization means these regulatory organizations. And now scope of this BIS has been expanded to entertain other regulatory agencies like insurance and custom, right? Those and these stock exchange, those regulators are coming to BIS right now because their scope has been expanded now. But early at the initial stage, that has been limited to all the central banks and the regulatory authority with regard to the banks, right? Because of that, right, that's the limited scope is there. But BIS does not accept deposit or provide financial service to private, individual or corporate entities. So you can't have account with the BIS, right? You can borrow from the BIS. The only institution can borrow from the BIS is central bank on temporary basis. Remember that. Only on temporary basis to remedify or rectify their balance of payment and short-term liquidity issues. Right? Short-term liquidity issues. Like a commercial bank, central bank also will have some liquidity issues. So if central bank have a kind of liquidity issues, they can ask for the support of their neighboring central banks and friendly central bank to support us, right? That's what we are having within the central bank scenario. Central bank have swap arrangement, temporary loan for 3 months, 1 month, 6 months. Likewise, they will have swap arrangement, temporary loan provided to the particular central bank. Very recently, perhaps you might have seen that we got the swap arrangement with the Reserve Bank of India for US dollar 400 million. That's a temporary arrangement. At the end of the particular period, we have to pay back. If you are not in a position to pay back, we can ask for the extension, but usually we are paying it, because otherwise it's a kind of issue with regard to the credibility of the central bank, particular central bank. Previously, we have these kind of temporary borrowings from the swap arrangement from the Bank Negara Malaysia, Malaysian Central Bank. Within the stipulated time period, agreed time period, we have settled this loan. That's for the entirely for the temporary, right, to equalize the liquidity problem of the central bank. Don't think that central bank have enough money, right, to undertake their operations. Central bank will also have liquidity issues. So we will also have a kind of issue to remedify it. That's what these, right, temporary arrangements are there. If you are not in a position to borrow from these kind of neighboring central bank, friendly central bank, the final lender, last resort of temporary lend is BIS, right? Like in your commercial banks, central bank become a last resort of lender. Likewise, central bank can go for the BIS for the borrowing of the last resort, temporary and short-term borrowings. So you and me not allowed to open the account with the BIS and the private sector customers. So mission of the BIS, that's a threefold: to serve central bank in a monetary and financial stability. To serve central bank in monetary and financial stability. Now, if you look at the objective of the central bank, there are two objectives. One is, right, financial system stability. The second one is monetary, right, stability. The monetary stability means stabilizing the monetary system, right, monetary systems. Control the inflations, available stock of monies in the market, right? Those are the things expected in the monetary stability. Stability of the money and the monetary system. The financial system stability is stability in the financial institutions. If the financial institution are instability, not stability, there are instability on that, it creates the problem for the system, entire financial system. If one bank in a crisis or one financial company in crisis, now look at the situation facing by the central bank, right? Perhaps you might have practical, right, example on that. If the finance company failure, right, only criticism will come to the central bank saying that they are not doing it well, right? So if something goes wrong with the bank, entire blame will to come to the central bank. Why? The central bank mission is to undertake financial stability, right? Stability is not there, right? That's internationally issue. We will have issue on that. Now see, if a big bank in a crisis, right? What central bank have to do? Central bank have, right? The central bank have to take a remedy measures. Perhaps you might seen that. I want to mention it. It's not hide things or right, the soap on things. Some time back, 3 to 4 years, not 3 to 4 years. I believe yes. 7 to 8 years back, right? Ceylon Bank was in a crisis. Ceylon Bank is on the crisis, right? What the central bank has done is, through its supervisory arms, Bank Supervision Department, they have undertaken the thorough evaluation on the particular banks, and they have decided to acquire the Ceylon Bank, right? Central bank management control have been taken by the central bank. Later, the Bank of Ceylon has been appointed as a right managing agents. So that arrangement were there for a shorter period until stability of the Ceylon Bank. Then later on, right after the reform of the management of the Ceylon Bank, the bank has been handed over to the particular management under strict terms and conditions. If something goes wrong with the Ceylon Bank, what will happen? Right? There will be huge repercussions on the central bank, monetary and financial stability. People will talk about what the central bank has done, why they are sleeping. Now see, this finance company failure, even though there are some chronic cases on that, blame will come to the central bank saying that central bank doing nothing, right? So we do, but only things we cannot, 100% we cannot manage the particular institutions. Today they will have a kind of, right, correct positions. Tomorrow management, tomorrow they will change entire situation and operation of the particular institutions. It's similar to bank also. But we always trust on the right management of the particular institutions, right? So if the management do the wrong things, if they take the wrong policies, that will have a direct impact to the operation of the particular bank and institutions, right? To remedify that one, perhaps you might have seen that we come up with the various type of regulations that corporate governance is much more important, right? Next sessions, right? You will learn about what the corporate governance, how it's important the banking business, what are the latest development, how functions are delegated among the CEOs and board of directors, what are the responsibility of right, each and every steps, right? So what are the operations, what are the powers and duties of the CEOs and others, that has been clearly mentioned, right? Because of these, right, issues, we want to monitor financial stability. We have these kind of remedify measures on that. Now, if you look at the operation of the bank in business right now, there are some restriction and limitation on the operations also, right? Some time back, central bank strictly follow that lending. There are encouragement of lending, there are restriction of lending. The central bank think that there are unnecessary monetary expansion, credit expansion of the particular sectors. Say, for example, some time back we had a limitation on personal loans. We made restrictions. Out of that, this is the amount you can provide. This is the maximum amount you can provide for the customer. That there are also condition imposed by the government also. This much of amount you have to give for the agriculture or housing. That's for the development, right? Central bank and government can have a control through the central bank or regulator on the banking sector operations, basically focus on the financial sector stability. Then the foster international cooperation of these areas, right? So BIS, they are trying to, right, foster cooperation among all the institutions, central banks, right? Now central bank cannot be isolatedly operate like in a commercial bank. Commercial bank operation can be limited to the particular country. They want to go beyond that, that's up to them. But central bank cannot work on isolated manner. They have to share their information with other countries. They have to respond to the international market and international financial system. They have to foster payment and settlement system, right? So those things have to be done.
So excuse me.
Sorry?
Excuse me.
Yeah, sure.
You said Ceylon Bank management we took over by BOC management.
Yes.
What are the special steps taken by central banks to, to stop the collapse? As we heard,
I'm sorry.
one bank, if one bank collapse, we heard a whole financial system usually collapse.
No,
so
it's not.
So what are the special steps taken by central bank to stop this collapse?
Right. Okay. Now, first thing is, if the one bank collapse, don't think that entire financial system will be collapsed. Right? That's depend on the size of the particular bank and the, right, that vulnerability of the particular banks. But that's why the central bank supervise and regulate those kind of institutions. The central bank has information about the operation about the particular institution. The central bank, Ceylon Bank case is, we have noticed that central bank have noticed that frequent manner in a long-term basis, they had a liquidity issues. They are facing the liquidity crisis, right? So once you have a liquidity crisis, a liquidity issue, you can't have a good banking. That's what at the beginning I told you, there are some risks associated with the banking business. Liquidity most important. If the bank is in a not position to serve customer requirements, right? It's become a failing bank. Now see, each and every time customer will come in, they can demand their money because the right of the bank, one of the particular money is, right, particular individual depositors. The bank is a custodian institution. They keep and safeguard the money for the customer. If I am going to the bank today, right? If I ask for the particular money I have a deposit in the bank should be in a position to, right, give this money back. That's the kind of scenario we are expecting. That's the kind of banking. That's a banking tactics and practice. If the banks are failed to do it, it won't be a good bank. But the Ceylon Bank scenario, what we have noticed at that time is liquidity crisis of the bank. So that means they are always facing day by day, very longer period. They had a liquidity because they borrow from their sister banks and brother banks first. And sometime the central bank also observe that they are coming to the central bank window, right, policy to get the temporary loans. Being the commercial bank, they can run the business, they can undertake the business. While doing so, temporary borrowing is not encouraged, right? And they cannot survive having the temporary loans. They have to find out the way to survive, right? Maintaining their liquidity positions. To maintain the liquidity positions, they can do, right? What they can do is they have to check their, right, operational mechanism. Why those liquidity situations are occur, right? What are the remedies they have to take within the banking institutions, right? If it is a go for a longer period, the supervisors always watchfully, carefully and look into that, and they will give the kind of warning first to rectify it. If they are not listening to that, right, they will take the strict action on the particular issue. That's what they have done. So then the central bank have undertaken the business and later on made the kind of, right, assessment and hand over to the Bank of Ceylon management to run the particular bank also. The things are remedified. Then the new management committee also appointed to manage the bank and hand over the operations over there. There's another instance where the central bank has undertaken all the activities of the particular bank. Perhaps you might have noticed that BCCI collapsed. World, right, fourth largest bank collapsed within 2 to 3 days because of the money laundering, right? In early 90s, money laundering means that's a good example of the money laundering process. That in American countries, money, drug trafficking money has been fed into this particular bank with the support of the employees of the particular bank. That's the number one. That's the key factor. If your corporate team is not honest, not obliged to follow the international rules and regulations, right, that will happen. That's what the FIU network will come into that. Now, under the FIU network, even the senior people are responsible if something goes wrong, right? That's how the law is there now. Now, see, to remedify the BCCI, all the branches of the BCCI collapsed. The remedification of the Sri Lanka was taken at that time is we acquired the particular branch, BCCI branch, right? Whatever the deposit, right? Whatever the deposit by the depositors paid back. Some of the deposit they have taken their deposit back. Central bank guaranteed all the deposits. But later on, what has happened is right after the acquiring all the asset and liabilities of the particular bank branch, Ceylon Bank was to acquire this particular branch, right, paying all the dues. That's what the Upper Chatham Street Ceylon Bank branch was operated at that time, right? Vested with the Ceylon Bank at that time. At that time, it was a good bank. There was no liquidity issue like the recent past. Right now, almost all the banks are not crisis situations. That's what the right after those kind of crisis situations and the BIS obligations, now central bank strictly monitoring these liquidity issues. Not only that, all the risks associated with the bank, central banks closely monitoring, right? That's what, if something goes wrong with the banking institutions, right? That's the, that liabilities will come to the particular institution, and sometimes people will blame the regulator. Hope you can realize, right, what I have said earlier.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, to foster the international cooperation in those areas. Next one, to act as a bank for central banks, right? As I mentioned earlier, it's a bank for the central bank. As the if you know the central bank are in the crisis, our last lender, last resort is the BIS on temporary basis, right? So we have a right, we have a way to go over there. That's what I say. Even though we are not a member of the right particular institution, BIS, Bank for International Settlement, right? So that's what the name also there, Bank for International Settlement, right? BIS. So they are supporting us, right? And because of that, it's become a regulator for us, for a central bank or bank supervisors. So whatever the terms and conditions imposed by the particular institutions, we have to follow it for the betterment of the economy and financial system. Oh, okay. To achieve the missions, to achieve their objectives, to achieve the objectives of that, right? So what they are doing is, all the central banks are doing is, they are fostering the discussions and facilitating the collaboration among the central bank. They have annual meeting in Basel. Basel is a city in Switzerland. The head office is there on the BIS. They are right. We call this a branch, but they are not branch, right? We call as a what you call that. We call it as a extension office. Two extension office, one in Hong Kong and one in Mexico, right? The head office in Basel, and their annual meeting over there. For annual meeting, all the central bank governors and all the head of the regulatory institutions, especially bank heads, bank supervision heads will be there. There are discussions about the collaboration of the central bank, what to do and how to do, and if there is any regulation to be changed, new regulations on the bank, they will discuss and find out the way to implement it. Supporting the dialogue with other authorities that are responsible for promoting financial stability. Not only that, those meetings, there will be regulators. Now remember that BIS is one of the observer in FATF, right? Then FATF members also going to BIS meeting. That's the collaborative mechanism, right? So they will exchange informations among others. If the FATF wanted to monitor banks and they want to tell it to the central bank governors at this BIS meeting, and their suggestions, they will explain this is the way, this is the trend of money laundering happening in the banking business. Those are the action we are going to rectify. You better look into that. That's the kind of discussion they are undertaking. That's the collaborative mechanism. And if there's any problem with the central banks, they will have a mutual agreement to support each other, right? They have mutual understanding to support each other. How they are going to support each and every central banks. That's how they are doing it. Stability. To achieve that missions, then they are carrying out research and policy analysis on issues of the relevant monetary or financial stability. Now, there are some studies undertaken by the BIS, because the BIS staff are almost all the researchers. Famous researchers come from the various countries. So on behalf of the BIS, they are undertaking certain policy analysis and research on the particular economies, particular countries, and even the banking businesses, how the banking businesses are run on the particular country. What are the weaknesses? What are the measures to be taken to rectify those measures? So that's how the study they have undertaken. And they share those information on the particular country, right? We are getting that support also. Basically, if you look at the Southeast Asian countries, our economies are same, our banking systems are same, then whatever the study they have taken based on the one particular country is can be commonly applied to the each and every South Asian countries. So that's how they are trying to rectify and remedify any type of deficiencies. The service and the agent or trustee in connection with the international financial corporations. Right? If you need the kind of financial cooperation among the central bank, right, they will work as a trustee or agent on behalf of the particular central bank. Now see, if you want to have a discussion with the particular country, now say European country, which we don't have much cooperation or what you call that international relations, we can ask the BIs to involve in that to deal with the financial business in the particular country. Now see, as a country, we don't have any embassies or high commissions in each and every country of this world, right? So if there is any financial issue with regard to the particular country which we don't have any cooperations, we can ask for the BAS to have establishment on that to support on behalf of the particular country. They will provide that service. That's how these things are happening. Now, the activities of the BIS, promoting monetary and finance is establishing one key objective of the BIS. That's one key objective, monetary and financial stability. Stability in the financial system and the monetary system. The money is so volatile, right? Without any support from the foreign countries, they will provide us a temporary loan, temporary assistance. If the banks are in a crisis, we can ask for the expertise to study and find out the remedies for that one. That's the one key objective, right? The BIS promote international cooperation among the monetary authorities and financial support officials through, this is the way they are promoting the cooperations, meetings and programs, right? Meeting and programs. They will have a meeting in addition to the annual general meeting once a year at the Basel. They will have a regional type of meetings. Sometimes they will have this in Hong Kong and other host countries like Singapore and India. They will have this meeting over there. And some program, those are the basic training programs and the program related to exchange of informations. Those will be there. Then we talk about the Basel process, right? Basel process. That's the international policy setting aspect. Now, under the Basel process, we have to follow Basel 1, 2, 3 like that. Bank have to follow it. Those are the standards. And all the supervisors are required to monitor it, supervise it. Basel process. So under this Basel process, they have international committees look into the Basel process, and they have standard setting bodies. So that means there are institutions, few institutions, they will set up the standards how the banks are run, how banks have to be operated, right? How the bank capital have been charged. What are the measures they have to take? What would be the policy guidelines? How would be the executive officers? How they are going to appoint the chairman? What would be the executive directors? What is the number of executive? What are the qualifications? What are the experience? How the duties can be separate from the CEOs and the board. Likewise, those standards can be set. Those standards are basically coming to the right after the financial crisis in 90s and 2000, East Asian crisis and 90s American crisis and the Russian crisis. Right after those crisis process, the standard setting bodies of the BIS become so strong. So we have to follow those standards now. Through the promoting research and statistic functions to fulfill the need of monetary and supervisory authorities for data and policy insight. When we are doing the kind of banking analysis, banking businesses, to compare with other countries, we may be in a short of the data. and we don't have policy guidance. So in that sense, we can rely on the BIS for those activities. They are providing some researchers on behalf of our countries. That's similar to the IMF and ADB. If we don't have any kind of expertise to undertake studies in our country, we can ask for the IMF to undertake research on behalf of us. ADB also undertakes such a things, but not basically in a banking. If it is if we are required to have a study undertaken by the banking sector, we can ask the BIS to support us, appointing the research officer, or provide the technical support, or provide the expert on this subject to support our supervisory authorities. That can be happen. Then they provide counterparty agent and trustee service appropriate to the BIS missions. So those are another aspect, how they are going to provide support for us, counterparty, agents, and trustee service. There are three different services. Counterparty. So on behalf of the particular two countries, they can be intermediary parties, right? On behalf of us. If you don't have direct contact with the two central banks, BIS can be a counterparty to invalidate. Then sometimes it can be work as an agent on behalf of us. Or sometimes they can provide the trustee services. Trustees is those who, have a trustee arrangement on that. In line with the BIS missions, that's what. They are not going beyond that. There's a mission to support each and every central bank. Under that mission, they will work on that. The foster sound understanding and supervisory standards and practices globally to assist in their implementing through the Financial Stability Institute. They have a separate institution called Financial Stability Institute, which undertake financial stability research and studies. So we can ask for their support to undertake such a study in our countries as well if we are not in a thorough of the particular subject. But usually, if you need that kind of support, our central bank also asking the support from them. And if FSI, Financial Stability Institute, help to promote cross-sectoral and cross-border supervisory cooperation by facilitating policy discussions and sharing the supervisory practices and experience. The BIS, now see, as I mentioned you earlier in the first lesson, country to country economy will be different. Law will be different. We'll talk at the cross-jurisdictional issues later, Law will be different, Banking practices will be different, Because of that, the banking practices in each and every country is not in equal basis and equal manner. But there are some common factors. Because of that, the BIS develop various kind of, they undertake a research and develop most suitable practices to the particular country. Now look at this, the standards and regulatory mechanism may not be equal to the Middle Eastern countries and ours. Because Middle Eastern countries, so most of the countries are Muslim countries, they are lower, they are religious, and their beliefs are different from ours. Because of that, the particular standards may not be 100% fit for the Middle Eastern countries. But even our culture and our difference and our law are different from the others. The particular standard may not be 100% fit for us. Because of that, there might be changes. We cannot do these changes, on our way, because we have to apply and comply with the BIS directions and guidelines. Not to violate those things, we have to get the support from those institutions. So that's what the expectation of that. So those are the committees of the BIS. There are huge committees on that. 9 committees and groups. Those committees are Basel Committee on Bank Supervision. This is the number 1. Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, BCBS. This is a specific and important committee for bank supervisions. Committee on the Global Financial System. Committee on the Payment and Market Infrastructure. The payment and settlement system are based on that. Perhaps you might that international transaction routed through one particular platform, right? One particular platform, right? Those platforms are monitored and promoted by the particular institution. Then the Market Committee undertake changes of the market. Then the Central Bank Governance Committee, Governance Forum, right? That's the Governance Forum. And the Irving Fisher Committee on Central Bank Statistics. Irving Fisher is the most famous, right, economist in the US. He was head of this Central Bank Statistics Committee some time back. Because of the honor of his name, it's now become Irving Fisher Committee on Central Bank Statistics. But the statistics are most important for the future activities. Now we focus on this is the most important one for us, not the BIS. There's a committee on that, right? Establish banking supervisory guidelines and standard. That's committee we call Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions. Those are the institutions which formulate, regulate, supervise all the banking institutions in line with their standards. That's committee we call BCBS, Bank Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions, entirely for the bank supervisions. That has been established in 1974 by the central bank governors of G10 countries after serious disturbance in international currency and banking market. 1974, right? Hope you could remember when you are talking the IMF, we talked about the imbalance of the foreign exchange market. There are countries, they are trying to devalue their currency their own. That's what the issue for the IMF as well. So to remedify that one, not only the IMF, Basel Committee also try to find out the way to do that one. That's what they have to establish central bank governors group, right? After serious disturbance in this banking market. So under that, there are 30 technical working groups and task forces. Remember that. Now see, you can imagine the size of the financial market and regulatory aspect of this BCBS established first by the central bank governors of G10 countries. G10 mean most richest countries in the world. Now you may understand that all the richest countries are implementing this regulatory framework, right? Not the poor countries. Why we can't do it? Because we are poor, we cannot, right, undertake such a job, and we are not in the position to influence the international market. That's why those big countries are having these kind of powers. Under that 13 technical working group and task forces, to what? Formulate best practice supervisory standards and guidelines. Standards and guidelines. So these 30 technical committees' job is to formulate best practices and supervisory standards and guidelines. Right? Standards and guidelines. Standards you have to follow. Guidelines you will guide. Right? So basically, once you violate the guideline, regulator may not take actions, but there are some regulators they can also take the actions, right? But usually, in the practical scenario, you can't breach the standards, but you can breach the guidelines, right? But only thing is, we are not expecting you to breach a guideline. Guideline is it's a guide for you to have your path, right? It's a guide for you to have a path. Or say we can travel anywhere on the road, right? But there are standards. Now it's become a law. You have to walk in the road in the left side or right side, or both sides. Huh? Any side if you want, right? In a Sri Lankan way, right? But there are standards on that, right? But there are some guidelines in the buses and trains, right? Once you see the old people like me, you have to provide the same. right? If you see the right pregnant lady, you must provide the seat, right? But usually, traditionally, if you see the ladies, we are providing the seat. But right now, what we are doing? Are you providing the seats? If you see the pregnant ladies, you are sleeping, right? Am I correct? Both girls and boys are sleeping, right? If you see the old guys, again you are sleeping, right? But if you see the nice girls, boys, you are providing the seats. Are those in the guidelines? Those are not in the guidelines, right? There are some countries, they are strictly following these guidelines. The European countries and American countries, even you can sit in a particular separate seat. If it is a earmark for the elderly and pregnant and disabled people, you are restricted and you are prohibited to do it. If you sit over there, once you see those kind of people, you must provide that one, right? If you are not provided that particular seat, others will shout. They will make a kind of fuss for you, right? Remember that. Even if you go to the Singapore, if you travel the Singapore buses and train, those guidelines are strictly following. It's become a rule now. Right. Basel Committee banks supervisions. Domestic agencies are free to implement its recommendations by way of their own domestic registration rules. That's what I say. Like in FATF rules and regulations, whatever the recommendations have to be implemented in domestic manner in line with domestic rules and legislations, right? That's what the expectations. That's what the expectations. So implementations have to be taken place in line with your legislation and rules. It's a country specific, but the platform is common to each and every country, right? That's what the difference. Now see, FATF recommendations also, those are recommendations. Implementation vested with the particular country, particular jurisdictions. That's depend on your laws and legislation and rules. But you should not violate the objective of that. Objective of the recommendations and regulations imposed by them. Now see, here recommendations, FATF recommendations, first you must understand what their objective is. Then in line with those objectives, you must formulate your local domestic law and the rules and regulation accordingly, right? If the laws and rules and regulations are not in line with the objective of the particular institution, they will take the actions against you. Perhaps you might have to change it again. That's what always better we encourage those kind of institutions to go for the consultation with the particular committees. That's what the Basel Committee have, these kind of various kind of committees on that. Country central bank or regulators, they can consult them and get their expertise knowledge of drafting these rules and regulations, right? That's what we do before implementations. And there is a group of governors and head of the supervisors, which consists of the central bank governors and non-central bank head of the supervisions, oversee the Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions. But how these Basel committees manage, BCBS, management is vested with the some central bank governors and head of the supervisors. I told you, our supervisors come under the central bank, but there are some countries, central bank is a different institution, supervisory agency is different from central bank. So this committee is headed by some central bank governors and some head of the supervisions, right? They are overseeing the Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions. Management will be vested with them. So every 2 years, there will be new set of management for that committee. And someone is want to or willing to continue, they have a 2 chance to do that. Now, I forgot to tell you, in case of FATF, the president, usually president is for a 1 year basis, 1 year term basis, right? But since 2019, right, the presidency go for 2 years, right? Since 1989, right, FATF, 1990, FATF president was, term of a president was 1 year. Now, 2019, presidency was go for a 2 years. Now, the president term is 2 years. Likewise, right here, there are some term of that. Basically, they are rotating on the 2 year basis. Right. So primarily, the Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions, that's the primary international standard setting body, which I mentioned earlier, banking regulations and supervisions. Key objective is to enhance understanding of key supervisory issues and improve the quality of banking supervisions. Right? Now see, they have set the standards earlier. Now see, Basel, I'll show you what are the Basel 1 and 2. Then if it is a Basel 1, time being, they will assess whether it is a worthwhile or it serves the objective of the Basel committee. If not, they will make an evaluation on that. Under the evaluations, right, they will assess whether it is adequate or not. If it is not adequate, they will come with some suggestion to improve it. Some suggestion to improve it. And they make a suggestion to which way they have to improve. What action they have to be taken. Right? Likewise, they can make a suggestions. Based on that suggestions, there are another set of right, rules and regulations. The forum for the regular cooperation on banking supervisory matters. That's what those the regulators are go over there. They will talk about the supervisory matters, whether it's a practical or not. Particular can be implemented. And being the supervisor, if there is a practical issue of implementing the Basel Committee regulations, we can make a complaint and we can justify it. We can say that we cannot implement it because of this particular reason. Right? There might be legal reason. There might be the political reasons. But whatever the reason, you must bring up to the particular committee. Otherwise, there will be post repercussions on that. The public consultation and integral element of the Basel Committee standard setting bodies process. Now, before the standards are set, they will have various kind of public consultations. They will get the view of the general public. So, general public mean those who are right having the banking businesses, the stakeholders. Everybody can provide their price suggestion on that. Now see, if someone that right regulation is messed up, or if it is a failure, employee can make a kind of public complaint to the Basel Committee through the regulator, right? And there are public hearings sometime. Public hearings mean this committee, Basel Committee on Bank Supervisions, their technical committee, they will call upon the proposal from various parties and various countries about how to formulate particular standards. Right? So that's how they are doing it. They are getting the public hearings, public views, public opinion on the standards. If it is a current standards, if they want to change it, they will change it in line with the listen to the particular views expressed by the particular individual. But it should be a good one and have a kind of improvement of the particular standards. Otherwise, they won't change it. Right. On central bank supervisors, right? Also, there are supervisory authorities which are non-central bankers. Now, in our scenario, bank supervision, right? Banking regulator is a come under the central bank. But there are some instances where bank regulator, bank supervisor is different from the central bank, right? Central bank is different from the bank supervisors, right? So their job is supervisory role. The policy decision will be vested in the central bank, right? So banks are supervised from the another institution. That's why the financial authorities are in the UK, right? They are working like that, and EU. There are separate supervisory authority for the bank supervisions, right? The Financial Stability Board is one of the financial supervisory authority. They are developing and coordinating the work of the national financial authorities and international standard setting bodies. They work to monitor and understand the supervisory angle, standard setting bodies. So that's how they are doing. That's one of the key factors which are come under the non-central banks, right? Then there are some other non-central bank supervisory authority which are working, right, towards the insurance sector. We call it as the International Association of Insurance Supervisors, right? ISIS. So they are basically supervising insurance sector, international standard setting body for supervision of the insurance sector. Now, basically, this Basel Committee earlier set for the bank supervisions, but now gradually those other areas also they are planning to set the standards. Why? Most of the banking institutions, they are carry out those business as well. Now, the bank are now undertaking various type of business. They do the insurance, they do the share market transactions, they invest in the various places, they do the banking, but ultimately they are not doing banking, they are doing other things, right? But the banking business now, if you look at the profitability of the banking business, international banks now, the banking business profitability is lesser than the non-banking business profit. Now, banks are run on a fee-based businesses, right? That's what the scenario now developing. Because of that, bank supervisors have to approach the different scenarios in line with the other regulatory agencies. That's what these ISCO come into that, ISIS come into that. So now they are, the Basel Committee, right? They are having the separate committee on that. That's a small committee, not big one, for the insurance sector as well. Then International Association of Deposit Insurance. Now the deposit insurance, that's one of the phenomena very recently introduced by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, deposit insurance. But that is in the US, if you look at the US market, this deposit insurance scheme was effective far back 1930. That deposit were insured by the particular insurance corporation or insurance board, right? FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in the US. But here, these deposit insurance in our country, the deposit insurance schemes are managed by the regulator, our bank supervision department. So each and every banks and the finance company, they have to make a premium. They have to make a premium, whatever the deposit they are generating and maintaining. That's a fee-based insurance. That means they have to pay insurance premium for that one. If you get the insurance, you have to pay premium anyway, right? If you go the car insurance, you have to pay the premium, right? If something goes wrong, they will pay, right? They will pay liability, but this may not be 100% to a certain extent. Now see, if you look at the, right, in the finance company, there are deposit insurance schemes over there, right? Under the deposit insurance scheme, excuse me. Oh, okay. Oh, authority. 네. 다음은 네, 있습니다. 네. 이 마우스 방법을 가다는 okay. Right. Okay, sorry. Right. We talk about the deposit insurance. Even under this deposit insurance, there will be maximum, right, insured value. Now see, if you look at the finance company, if there is a failure of the finance company, right, the central bank or particular department, bank supervision department or non-bank supervision department, they will pay only the 600,000 rupees per customer, per depositor, right? Irrespective of the amount you have deposits. So that means even deposit insurance, right, does not guarantee 100% payment on that. That's depend on the premium and amount you insured. But anyway, there are some sort of protection for the, right, some sort of protection for the depositors. That is good scenario, right? At least something, right? In our words, right? So Basel Committee on Bank Supervision, they issue the various kind of documents and standards. Now, number one they issued is 25 core principles of effective banking supervisions. We call it as a Basel core principles, right? So bank supervisions have to be based on these 25 core principles, right? Later on, there are certain change of that, revisions on that, but still core principles are there. So we call it as a Basel core principle. The supervisors cannot violate these core principles, right? Core principles. So that's what these core principles are important. Then the framework for internal control system in the banking organizations. They develop the internal control system. So each and every country is right now, they are following it. And the Basel 1 and 2, I'll explain what are those banking organization international policies. The practice for management and supervision of operational risk, right? Now remember the operational risk, right? There are risks associated with the banking business, right? So practice of the management and supervision of the operational risk in the Basel Committee, they have some sort of, right, supervisory guidance on operational risk. Then the compliance functions in the banking. They talk about the compliance function, being the compliance officials, right? If you want to be a compliance officer, you must know about what are those Basel guidelines on compliance. If it's a banking business, not only that, you must learn, right, what are the compliance functions being the FIU, right? I'll show you what are the functions of the compliance officer later on, right? They are a separate lesson under this diploma and the responsibility of the compliance officials, right? So enhancing corporate governance for banking organization. That's the new development, not new, right? But it's under the corporate Basel II, they have formulated some corporate governance for the banking organization, not for the banking organization. This, right, corporate governance structures, right, encouraged to have even private bodies, private companies, entities. If it's a individual legal organizations, even private companies and corporations, now they have to follow corporate governance, right? Why is that? There's certain demarcation of the authority and right of the particular individual, particular authorities, how they manage the organization. If something goes wrong, right, to minimize the risk of collapsing of the particular institutions, right? If the particular institution are owned by the one and individual people, right, individuals, a group of people, without support from the other corporate entities, the collapsing of the particular institutions are so fast. That's what the banking crisis in 1990s and early 2000 shown us. Because of that, especially in the 1990s, right? 1990s banking organizations crisis, right? Lead the kind of lesson to come up with the corporate governance in 2003, right? Perhaps you might see that Canterbury, right, report is one of the main documentary evidence to show that importance of the corporate governance, right? Enhance corporate governance for banking organizations, especially for the banking. These are committee recommendations. The Basel I that has been issued in 1988, they talked about the common minimum capital standards. They talk about the common minimum capital standards. So minimum capital standards, they haven't identified what are those, but that's depend on the particular country and banking system. But they have to have minimum capital requirements, right? Each and every bank, they have to have minimum capital requirements. In the 2004, they introduced Basel under the Basel II, right? Again, the capital requirements. Why these capital requirements most important for the banks? Huh?
To face the liquidation problem.
I'm sorry?
To face the liquidation problem.
Okay, right. What is the capital? What is the capital?
The shareholders' money?
Yes, that's right. Shareholders' money, right? Shareholders' money is a capital, right? So, without adequate capital, they cannot run the business, right? Borrowings and deposits are different from the capital. Initially, you have to have a adequate money to run the business, right? That's what these minimum capital requirements are there, right? So minimum capital requirements, that's depend on the country to country and size of the economy and the supervisory review, right? How the banks are going to review, what the supervisory action to be taken, right? They have developed the standards under the Basel II. As I mentioned earlier, those supervisory policies are subject to the laws and regulation of the purview country, right, in line with their laws. Then the most important part is they talk about the market discipline. Market discipline means not only the institution discipline, they have to have market discipline. If you look at the banking business, all the banks are behave in a similar manner. There shouldn't be undercutting of the each and every banks, right? So now see, if the banks collectively agree to the one point, they must, right, adhere to that particular point. They shouldn't be undercutting on that. Now in these days, look at these days, right, these undercutting policies are not there as far as I am concerned, right? Sometime back, each and every bank competitively offered the special rate for the deposits. There are a general rate for the deposits. Depending on the bulk amount, banks are used to provide a special rate for the customers. It's a fair or unfair? Huh?
Unfair.
Ah, right. Right. Now what banks are doing? They have a favorable customer, they will provide a special rate. If you see the big customer, they will provide a special rate, right? But if you see the poor customer, right, not family customer, they will provide the minimum rate, not the maximum. If you look at the banking practice and concept, it's not fair. That's what we are talking about, the market discipline, right? Nowadays, I believe that supervisors have taken the decision not to provide the special rate. I don't know practically how these things are happen, right? There's no specific rate or special rate for the customers right now. Might be some banks are doing it. That's what we call undercutting. Eh? So bank A is not doing it, but bank B is providing higher rates. But it shows that another issue. It shows that another issue, right? They are short of liquid assets. They don't have money. That's what they are giving the higher rate. That's what happened in the finance company also, right? The banks, what the finance companies in a liquidity crisis, they are trying to enter more and more deposit, offering higher rates. Higher rate means they are not in a position to pay it back, right? It's not a good terms. It's not a good, right, policy to be followed by the banking business. That's what the restrictions are there, right? Then the market discipline. That's the, where not only the banking business, you must have a discipline, right? It's a banking business or other business. If there is no discipline on the particular businesses, you can't run the business. If you look at the school, if the children are shouting, they are not in line with the teacher's requirements, right? Nobody going to put their children into that particular schools. They say that useless school. There's no discipline on that, right? Students are moving out of the gate, even in the interval and non-interval period, they don't have discipline, right? Likewise, if the banks are having the undercutting to provide the rates and they're giving the loans, there's no discipline of the particular banks, right? So you have to have market discipline on lending and taking the deposits. Might be some competition among each and every bank. Because of the competitions, there won't be a market discipline, but market discipline have to be there. Discipline have to be monitored by the regulator. That's what under the Basel II, this market discipline become the one of the pillar, right? Right, one of the pillar. Now look at the Basel III, right? Basel III implemented in 2011, right? Pillar 1, there are 3 pillars on that: capital adequacy and quality. Capital adequacy and quality. Then we talk about the capital adequacy of the pillar 1. They talk about the capital of Basel II. They talk about the common minimum capital standards and the capital requirements. Now they talk about the capital adequacy and quality of that capital, right? So in case of this bank capital, the share, what you call that, investors, shareholders' money will be a capital of that. But that's the initial capital. Subsequently, the capital can be increased in a different ways. They can issue the subsequent shares, right? Warrant or something like that. There are a way of increasing the capital by not in the banking business, even other institutions. Can we issue the bonds, right? Those are the things. But here they are talking about the capital adequacy plus quality of that capital. Whether it's a good quality capital can be improved by the banking business. Otherwise, if it is a bonds, mean you have to pay back and you have to pay interest. But if it is a direct capital from the investor, shareholders, if it is a dividends, you can pay it. Otherwise, if you are not in a position to pay back dividends, you can be a silence, right? So likewise, the capital adequacy and quality of that capital have to be monitored. Then the risk management and supervisions. They talk about the risk management of the particular banks and the supervisions. And the pillar 3, again, they talk about the market discipline. Why this market discipline are, most important subject? The competitions among each and every banks at that time. Market competition is a huge one because, you want to grab the market. Now look at the Sri Lankan market right now. If you go to the big city, not even the big city, even the smaller city, how many bank branches are there now? Right? How many banks are there now? Right? Each and every banks and every bank branch, they have to be competitive with each and every branch in the particular city or town to grab or increase their customer base, right? To increase the customer base, right? So you can't increase the customers day or 3 days or 4 days or 1 week. If the branch are going to the particular market today, somehow they have to grab the market. Grab them in, you have to get the customers from another bank, other branch, right? It should be a disciplinary manner. Should be a disciplinary manner, but not in disciplined way. You can't canvas, so you can't say that, okay, go to the bank A, come to the bank B, we will give the good rate to you. In addition to that, we will give the right these things like that. But there are some disciplinary and undisciplined mechanism also, right? The banks are sometimes banks were used to provide various kind of gift. That has been suspended by the central bank, right? Various kind of gift items, souvenir items. Right? Those are in line with the market discipline. Those are not encouraged by the regulator. That's why some time back, regulator has taken the decision to, right, not to give these kind of things to your customer, right? Customer in the various occasions. The market discipline is most important. By doing that one, you are sharing, you are breaching the share of another bank or branch and grab the particular customers to your bank and branch, right? That's not a good disciplined bank in practice. That's what. So Basel III, again Basel III, comprehensive set of reform measures. That's if you look at the Basel I and II, right, it's become a comprehensive one. Talk about the capital, discipline, and the regulation point of view. Comprehensive set of regulations, restrain the regulations. Strengthen the banking sector regulations and strengthen the supervisions. Supervisors are allowed to take the strict action on that. Then the risk management of the banking sector is important. But so if there is no market discipline, there are risks of the banking business and branches, because each and every banks are trying to undercut the business of others. Right? It's not an ethical banks. It's not a good banking practices. It will carry the risk of that banking business. If you breach the customer of the particular bank or branch and grab those customers to your branch, right? In a shorter period, the particular bank or branch will not be in a position to survive. That's what. Competition is okay. If the competition is not there, bank won't be in this level. Right? Remember that 25 to 35 years ago, if you go to the bank, right? Bank is a vulnerable place. It's not a fancy place, right? It's a utter and dirty place, right? There are big queues over there. So many queues, right? To do the banking business, perhaps you have to stay over there for a day. Now, I know that, right? In our childhood, we have to allocate the 1 day go for the banking. That's how we do the banking business. But today is entirely different. Competition is healthy. Now, people, they don't like to wait for a longer queue. If you are there in a queue for more than half an hour, people will shout to the manager. That's the situation now we have developed, right? So people won't like to, they don't like to stay in the queue right now, right? That's the kind of development. These developments are encouraging, but market discipline have to be there. But indiscipline is not there. Right? Comprehensive set of reform measures, strengthen the regulations, supervision, and risk management of the banking sector. This is most important, right? Basel III, if you look at the Basel III, right? Overall Basel III regulations is trying to strengthen the regulations and the supervision aspect and risk management of the banking sector. Under that, look at that, the banks supervision department of central bank, they have to issue the various kind of regulations, corporate governance regulations, customer charter, right? Various kind of regulation related to the credit card, deposits, right? Those kind of things are there. They have done much of that, right? That's what the implementation of Basel III. So why those things are, right? Why those things are do? Aiming to improve the banking sector ability to absorb shock arising from the financial economic stress, whatever the source. I told you, because of the economic crisis, financial crisis in mid-2000, right? So these, right, regulations are formulated after the careful study of this economic crisis and financial crisis, right? So they provide these to absorb the shocks of the financial economic stress. That's what this regulator become a tough now. Improve the risk management and governance. Corporate governance came into the play. The risk management have to be there. They strengthen the bank transparency and disclosure. Transparency and disclosure. Transparency, perhaps you might have seen that in your bank. Now you are displaying all the interest rate, lending rates, exchange rate, right? Everything, so now you have to display, right? That's a transparency of people know that, right? You go to the particular bank, they know that what is the dollar rate today, right? So that's what you have to maintain. But sometimes the banks will have a different approach also. Preferred customer, they will provide the preferred rate, but it's not a fair banking, huh? Right? Anyway, so that's the strength, the transparency and disclosure of the particular institution. Target was, right, address the bank level macroprudential regulation to the period of stress. What is the micro and macro, right? The target of this reform, right, Basel II, is to address the microprudential regulation to period of stress. Micro mean, if you look at the individual scenario, right, to address the issue with regard to the particular specific banks, if it is specific to the particular bank, it's become a micro, right? If you look at the whole banking business, it's become a macro, right? Overall reforms, right? This is an institutionally specific reform, institutions specific reform. But here Basel III, all these two, they look at the institutions and the entire sector, right? Entire sector. Overall, they look at the banking sector and they look at the specific on the particular institutions. That's what they talk about, the market discipline, right? And supervision. Right. So that's what the system they have addressed. Oops, finish it. Right. So those are the reform target. Now remember that since beginning of the 90s, 2019, they talk about the Basel IV. Basel IV, because of the situation in the world, they have not yet finalized the Basel IV regulations, but have given the kind of idea about the reform area, right? Especially in their banking capital. So next time, next class, not next class, huh? Perhaps next year class, we can talk about the Basel IV. Basel IV suggestion was to review, right, capital, right, capital adequacy of a bank and quality of the bank capital, right? Those are the issues with regard to the Basel IV regulations. We can't say exactly when this will be, but they are also scheduled to come in 2019 and 2020. That time has passed. And then talk about risk of the capital. Those are the two issues to be addressed during these couple of years, but that has not happened. Perhaps this not next even this year, next year, right? So we can talk about the Basel IV, right? So then till then, right? We will finish the discussion with regard to the international financial regulatory initiatives. So next week and onward, we will talk about the regulatory mechanism. What are the job of regulator? How they are going to regulate? What is the benefit of regulations? What are the institutions to be regulated? What are the things they have taken so far? And the powers of the regulator, duties of the regulator, right? Those kind of things we will discuss next week. I think this handout has been circulated among all of you. Better you read it, and if you have any questions what we have done so far, you better question me next week. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.